Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second part of what it neglected Naruto sacrificed himself for his family and chosen by Morphing Grid. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel, and for more exclusive and spicy content, follow me on Patreon. Link is in the description below. And now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
In the Tower Hokage at the moment, Minato Namikaze was fighting paperwork, the scourge of all cages. The damn thing just won't go away and keeps getting worse no matter what he does. Minato sighs in exhaustion. Finally, his paperwork was complete. He glanced at the picture in the picture holder on the right side of his desk. The image contained 5 individuals. When he recalled his family's excitement during the photo shoot, he grinned. In the first, his wife Kushina was standing beside him in her typical Hokage attire, which included a long, loose-fitting dress and a high-collared, sleeveless blouse. The dresses have varied from tan to green, and the blouses have been shown in both white and slate blue. Menma, the youngest of the triplets, was to his left. He was dressed in orange shorts, a blue jacket, and a red t-shirt. Natsumi, his only daughter, was in the center. She was wearing blue shorts, a white jacket, and a gray t-shirt. She put her hair up in a ponytail as well. However, his smile turned to a frown as he looked at the final person in the far right corner of the photo. When he saw the person in the photo, he had a dejected, guilty expression on his face. Naruto was his eldest son. Naruto had 3 whiskers on each cheek and was an exact replica of himself. He was dressed in gray shorts, a red jacket, and an orange t-shirt. Naruto was pushed to the far back of the image, practically invisible, and had a dejected expression on his face when he recalled how he and Kushina would beat him and punish him for the smallest of things. His guilt began to grow even more. He even recalled how he, his wife, and the godparents nearly killed Naruto that night after he disowned himself from them and the clan and fled the village. The thought of the unforgivable sin he had committed to his 6-year-old son because he had beaten his siblings caused tears to start streaming down his face. Minato was unaware of Natsumi and Menma's intense animosity toward Naruto. He heard how the two had abused Naruto while he was in the hospital, accusing him of doing things they did and bullying him for no other reason than to start the fight. The Uzunami family and the 2 surviving Sannin resumed their regular lives after spending 2 weeks in the hospital recuperating. However, that was prior to that day. That was the day a year ago that startled and almost destroyed the whole elemental nation, the apocalyptic catastrophe. Flashback: there were no clouds in the sky, and the day was completely sunny. There was no indication that the village was disturbed. While negotiating the peace treaty in his office with the Raikage, Minato nearly started another conflict in the Leaf Village. However, after discovering evidence that Cloud was responsible for their acts against the Leaf Village and its 2 clans, they were found guilty. As a result of the previous Raikage's avarice and idealism for Dujutsu and powerful bloodlines, the 4th Raikage acknowledges that the shinobi he sent was sent to decree the peace treaty, but it was the civilian council members who ordered the kidnapping of the Uchiha and Hyuga heirs. As a sign of forgiveness for what had transpired 3 years prior, the 4th Raikage brought several lightning jutsus and a different peace treaty following the civilian council's execution, as and Minato eventually reached a consensus. Well, Hokage, I can honestly say that I'm truly sorry for what my council tried to do behind my back. I regret not dealing with them about my father's idealism for power has gone further to their heads that it led to this. A simple peace treaty almost turned to another war. A responded. A is a tall, muscular, dark-skinned man with combed-back white hair, blonde in the anime, a small beard, and a mustache. With prominent cheekbones, tear troughs beneath his eyes, and a noticeable crease across his forehead, his face is incredibly distinct. His father gave him characteristics like pointed canines and a darker upper lip than a lower one. In contrast to other cages, A appears to frequently don his cage hat and haori without a shirt underneath, showcasing his massive build. On both shoulders, he has tattoos of Demon Wind Shuriken in black when he attacks. The protrusions from the gold bangle bracelets he wears on each wrist may protrude. 3 of his bodyguards were with him: his right-hand man and father's pupil, Darui of the Black Lightning, his younger brother, Jinchuriki of 8-tailed octopus Ox Gyuki, Killer B, as well as Sensor C and his dependable medic. Killer B has a muscular physique, dark skin, white hair, blonde in the anime, and a goatee. He has a tattoo of the Iron Armor Seal, which was used to seal the 8 tails into him, on his right shoulder. On his left cheek, he has a tattoo of a bull's horn. The left horn of Gyuki, the 8 tails ox, is partially missing. Additionally, his upper lip is a shade darker than his lower lip. Killer B has on a white forehead protector and oval-shaped sunglasses. In addition, he wears the typical Kumo hand and shin guards, shinobi sandals, a white scarf around his neck, a one-strap over one-shoulder flak jacket from his village, and 7 swords on his back. He also has a long, red rope belt tied around his waist. Darui is a dark-skinned, rather tall man with a slightly bulbous nose, lazy eyes, and shaggy white hair that pulls back over his left eye. He is dressed in a sleeveless, high-collared uniform, loose-fitting pants, bandages around his wrists, and the Cloud Shinobi's one strap over one shoulder flak jacket. In addition, Darui has stylized symbols for lightning, lei, and water, shui, tattooed on his left shoulder and right shoulder, respectively. These symbols represent his bloodline limit, the storm style, and his chakra's nature affinities, water style and lightning style. Additionally, the tattoo on his left arm indicates that he has inherited the black lightning of the third Reikage. When he is outside the village, he has a large, foldable sword that resembles a cleaver strapped to his back. In contrast, C is a young man with dark eyes, fair skin, and short, blonde hair along with a pair of sandals. He sports a black sleeveless shirt, a white flak jacket with a single strap across one shoulder, a black forehead protector, distinctive black arm guards that reach his elbows, and the red and white hidden cloud shin guards. Yes, who would have thought something like this would ever occur? Minato murmured as he reviewed the documents pertaining to the new peace treaty. Minato remarked, I suppose it's something to be expected. After all, there are some who will do anything and everything in their power to get what they want, even if it meant disobeying or betraying your village and comrades. A simply agreed with a grunt. Yes, in the world of the shinobi, betrayal is bound to occur, especially in the most unexpected time and place. Now that that's settled, let's finish up on our agreement on the peace treaty between our villages. Said to Minato. Darui looked around the Hokage's office idly while the two Kages were negotiating the peace treaty. Then he looked at Minato's family photo on his desk. He decided to take a closer look after noticing that something wasn't quite right with the image. Then Darui saw that Naruto was the least noticeable person in the photo. Minato saw that Darui was examining a family photo after the Kages had finalized the paperwork and agreements and shook hands to establish an alliance and peace between their villages. He approached him. Minato said, I see you noticed my family picture, Darui. Darui put the photo on the table and scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry about that, Lord Hokage, I guess the picture just got me curious, that all, Darui replied. Minato picked up the photo with a puzzled expression on his face. What do you mean, Darui? I've seen this picture several times during my work and I don't see anything wrong. Try looking a little closer, Lord Hokage. There you see the blonde-haired kid at the back of the picture. He's the only one that's almost left out of the family photo, and from the way he looks it's like he was never meant to be in the picture in the first place, like he was never there to begin with, Darui said as he pointed out the obvious. When Minato looked more closely, he saw that Naruto was hardly visible in his family photo. But why is Naruto the one who appears to be on the verge of disappearing? A Chunin burst through the door before Minato could react or say anything. At the top of the Hokage Tower, Minato flashed outside and said, Lord Hokage, there is something you must see quickly, look outside. His eyes widened in amazement at what he saw. In a matter of seconds, the sky had changed from sky blue to blood red. Earthquakes, landslides, and wildfires were caused by the black lightning strikes that split the earth and left craters. The village was in disarray. Numerous buildings were on fire, and some had collapsed along with killers B, Darui, and C. A broke through the window and joined Minato. The sheer devastation brought about by this unexplained phenomenon astounded the four-cloud ninja. He scratched the back of his head sheepishly and said, Sorry about your window, Lord Fourth Hokage. It's alright, I can worry about that later. Right now we need stop whatever is causing this, said Minato. Abruptly, a Chunin approached them. Lord Hokage, we have received news that this phenomenon seems to taking place throughout the entire elemental nation. Every hidden village and nation has been and is being assaulted the same way as our village as we speak. Everyone's eyes widened when they heard this. The 5 great nations, as well as smaller nations and villages, were attacked. Minato ordered, Give me the status report on the village and civilians now. Sir, the civilians have been evacuated but some were caught in the crossfire. They are receiving medical treatment as we speak. The east side of the village has been completely destroyed but the rest have suffered severe damage. We look out. He called out as the lightning fell on them after charging his lightning armor. He struck the black lightning with his fist. Everyone was caught completely off guard by what transpired. His lightning armor was somehow absorbed by the black lightning, which then exploded, sending him through 6 buildings. Darui, C, and Killer B hurried to his side and yelled, Boss, big bro. By the time they arrived, it was in poor condition. He suffered 2-degree burns and a broken right arm. Overall, he was fine. C began tending to his wounds right away. Minato was caught off guard. This was unlike anything he had ever seen. How could his lightning armor be absorbed by the black lightning and then explode like that? What is this type of jutsu? But as an Anbu came up to him, his thoughts were interrupted. Lord Hokage the Nine Tails is attacking. What Minato was hearing was unbelievable. As they hurried to the Uzumaki Namikaze clan compound, Minato commanded, "What? How is that possible? I remember sealing it away." Shit, Natsumi, Menma, Kushina, rat, bird, monkey with me quickly. Jiraiya was bleeding on the ground when they got there. Tsunade was trying to heal him as fast as she could. And Kushina was barely able to keep the humanoid Yuki from covering Natsumi and Menma with her chakra chains. Menma and Natsumi both had their skins torn off as they went four tails because they were both infused with the destructive demonic chakra of the Nine Tails. The humanoid form of the Nine Tails was absorbing the demonic chakra that had been dispersed throughout the village in the Land of Fire all those years ago. Huge amounts of chakra were being absorbed as the fox's chakra started to grow and unite again, separating from the two kids and a little from Kushina, the former Jinchuriki. After being separated from them, Natsumi and Menma were barely breathing and had multiple burns all over their bodies now. Kushina was attempting to use her chakra chains to restrain the two newly formed chakra-laced Nine Tails. Minato ran over to join his wife. With his wife barely surviving on her own, Minato asks, "Kushina, what happened here?" Kushina coughed a little and glanced up at her husband. "Jiraiya, Tsunade and I were training Natsumi and Menma when they suddenly started screaming and the fox's chakra started to take over. I used my chakra chains to hold them down so Jiraiya could place the repressing seal and suppress the fox's chakra back into the seal, but Menma attacked him, reaping him through the chest." Kushina stated as her strength began to decline. The enormous quantity of chakra had completed its formation. The same beast that he had sealed away 7 years prior stood in its place, a version of the nine-tailed fox with chakras. It roared loudly, taking several buildings with it. The enormous beast was unaffected by the Anbu, several Jonin, and Chunon's attempts to eliminate it. When Minato called forth Gamabunta, the fox's power blasted them both away. The sky began to crack just as things were about to get worse. Magma erupted from the fissures as the earth began to split. The fox's tail stopped Minato from charging at the Nine Tails with Bunta once more. Its corrosive chakra burned Bunta's skin and flattened him. The fox attacked Minato directly after releasing a tiny quantity of its chakra, which gave it a humanoid form. Minato attempted to defeat it with his Rasengan and sealed kunais, but was unsuccessful. Minato was slammed to the ground as the humanoid chakra absorbed the Rasengan. When others arrived to assist their Hokage, the enormous fox swatted them away. The human fox, which was based on chakra, took Minato by the neck and lifted him up. Looking him in the eye, images of Naruto began to flood Minato's mind as he fought to break free. What is this? Why is Naruto on my mind right now? How does this relate to him? As the pressure on his neck increased, Minato thought. When the fox noticed this, it gave an evil smile. Minato gave him a startled look and said, "It seems that the seal the kid placed on you is finally weakening." A seal he had been sealed by someone. "That's right, you worthless fucking asswipe. Before you left this pathetic hellhole of a village, the kid sealed away yours and your worthless bitch's memories of him so no one would ever find him unless he wanted to be found. How I know is because you nearly killed him that night." Minato was startled to learn this. The fox has been talking about this kid, and he almost killed it. What exactly is happening, and how does this relate to Naruto? I see that you still don't understand. Then allow me to clarify. The kid's was your own flesh and blood. The little boy my other half had to watch over like his own as he endured unimaginable pain and suffering throughout his life. When you sealed my body and soul into him, you made him the fucked up fool scapegoat to the point where even you started using him as a scapegoat. You left to die, to suffer at the hands of those monsters you call villagers. Do you know how much he had suffered? How many times he was close to being dead? Do you? The chakra-laced creature roared. Minato felt frightened now. He was unwilling to accept it. That was how much his own child had suffered. Why was he unaware of this? When all of this was going on, where was he? Minato was taken completely by surprise when he heard, "Do you still not understand? Sigh? For a genius you sure are stupid. Your family in this village fucked up big time for the boy whose life you cursed was Naruto's." Now everything made sense. He had sealed the fox's body and soul for Naruto. He was the one who turned Naruto into the scapegoat for the village and turned his life into a living hell. As he began to recall everything, tears began to fall down his cheeks. He touched his forehead with his claws before grabbing his face and slamming Minato to the ground. "There is no point in crying, Hokage, for your time is over before I leave. Here is what the kid personally went through." A crimson, orange, and pink laser beam blasted through the sky as it broke open. As the laser continued to pierce everything, including the Earth's crust, the village was being destroyed in front of his eyes. The fox appeared to have managed to deflect the laser blast while firing a huge-tailed beast bomb at that moment. The eight-tailed ox killer uses his own tail beast bomb to attack the laser blast. The laser blast was just about being pushed back by the combined strength of the two-tailed beast bomb. It was still insufficient at that moment. A second laser-like blast burst from the sky. The color was bluish-green. The other laser blast was totally destroyed, resulting in a strong shockwave that sent everything flying back with an impact force equivalent to a level 9 tidal wave. Prior to losing consciousness, Minato witnessed the erasing village being restored and the 9 tails being absorbed by the bluish-green laser before they exploded in the sky, creating yet another strong shockwave. The flashback end following the incident. Minato and Jiraiya spent 4 weeks in the hospital. Only a few people were hurt, and it appeared that the village had recovered on its own. No one knows how. The village had been ruled by Hiruzen until Minato recovered. As soon as and the other Cloud Shinobi recovered, they hurried back to discover that everything had been returned to normal. Minato was unaware of Natsumi and Menma's intense animosity toward Naruto. He heard how the two had abused Naruto while he was in the hospital, accusing him of doing things they did and bullying him for no other reason than to start the fight. He discovered more than just that to see how his life actually was. He used his shadow clone to change it into Naruto. It goes without saying that Minato received his response and wasn't entirely pleased with it for 3 years. Naruto endured whatever his clone had endured. It wasn't until Naruto fled that he realized why he was so blind with regret and guilt. He gazed at his son's face. "Where are you, son? Naruto. Come home, please, for everything he has ever done to you. Daddy sincerely apologizes. Come home, please. Son, I sincerely apologize. Please return my son to me. Kami, if you were paying attention as more tears streamed down his cheeks. Minato prayed to the god, hoping that his plea would be heard. Please bring him home safely." Minato sensed that someone he knew had just walked into his office. It was Jiraiya, till crying over that picture. Minato. Minato kept staring at the photo in his hand without even acknowledging Jiraiya. Jiraiya shook his head and asked, "Did you find any leads regarding Naruto? Anything at all?" Additionally, he had witnessed Naruto's life prior to his departure from the village while recuperating in the hospital. Jiraiya was snooping around for someone to assist him with his research. When he happened to stumble upon one of the patient's medical records in particular, it was registered under Masuko Toraabi and belonged to Naruto. Jiraiya was intrigued by this. Why would Naruto be registered under someone other than Tsunade? It didn't really matter. Jiraiya felt like throwing up and went pale when he opened the files. Not even Orochimaru's experiments could compare to what he had read in his hand. He had witnessed the atrocities of the Shinobi Wars and had what people would do to survive hell. On a stormy night, Naruto was a 3-year-old hog bound to steel posts and bark wires. Alive but barely able to flee after being burned, tortured, drowned, brutally beaten, and many other things. It all ended when the child turned 6 years old. After that, there was nothing more. It was illogical. How come Tsunade is unaware of this? Jiraiya went through the file again and discovered the reason. Every time Naruto approached Tsunade within 5 feet of her after attempting to get her to heal his wounds, Tsunade also contributed to the breaking of several of his bones. Jiraiya hastily put everything back in its proper place and went back to his bed. Jiraiya went to confront Tsunade about this after she had fully recovered, but she was dismissed, saying that Naruto was just a bother and a common sense. When Jiraiya tried again, the aforementioned woman gave her a hard punch. When that didn't work out, he went to look for Misuko, but she was assigned to a 2-month mission to the land of tea with Itachi. Jiraiya went to see Hokage Minato, his former pupil. After deciding that he was his last option while traveling, he witnessed some villagers beating someone, and upon closer inspection, Jiraiya saw it was Naruto. Furious, Jiraiya hurried to save his godson, only to discover that it was a shadow clone. Jiraiya wasted no time in calling in the Anbu and having Naruto's attackers taken into custody for assaulting the Hokage's son, abusing children, and stealing the clan's heir. Then Jiraiya headed for the Hokage Tower. He noticed Minato holding his family photo in the office. Tears were streaming down his cheeks. Jiraiya suspected Minato was aware of Naruto's attack. After learning everything there was to know about Naruto's life, Minato felt like throwing himself into a volcano for not only ignoring Naruto but also hurting him so much. In order to make amends with his son and, if necessary, beg for his forgiveness, Minato had asked Jiraiya to locate Naruto and bring him back to the village. With a frown on his face, Jiraiya gazed at the peaceful afternoon village and said, "I'm sorry Minato, but I've searched everywhere. Not even my spy network could find him. It's like he just vanished out of thin air." Minato appeared heartbroken, but until he had Naruto back in his arms, where he should have been all along, he wasn't going to give up in the arms of his father. "Please keep looking, Jiraiya-sensei. I can't stop until Naruto is found and brought back safe. I don't care how, just please bring him back home." Minato said with a voice that was broken at that moment. A massive explosion could be heard outside the village. Minato commanded, "What the hell? What's going on?" Through Shunshin and Anbu entered. Minato entered Hokage mode and said, "Lord Hokage, Lord Jiraiya, an army of monsters like beasts are attacking the village. Gather the civilians and have them escorted to the bunkers immediately. All ninjas Chunin and above are to defend the village. Do not let those things anywhere near the village. All genin are to remain with the civilians and some Chunin with them just in case Sensei you and Anbu are with me. We're going to need at the front lines for this invasion." Jiraiya gave a nod. "Right." The Anbu nodded and departed, saying, "All you have your orders, let's move. And I want no civilian caught in the crossfire, understand?" It was a bloody battle outside the village. There were bodies all over the place. Everything in sight was being destroyed by the Greetox. Greetox was a wall of flesh that resembled a muscular humanoid with enhanced destructive power and cybernetic weapons. They're stronger and faster than predators, but their bodies are humanoid. The Leaf Ninja were being pushed back in spite of their attempts to keep them out of the village. There were 5 TDMMs, time-dimensional mutant monsters, behind the massive army. The first was Dragonic, a 7-foot, dark, crimson-purple dragon-like creature with 2 dragon heads. It has strong metallic wings, a tail, and claws, one on top of his body and the other in the center. He was in charge. The second was Sabretooth, a cyborg orange saber-tooth tiger. He had 2 robotic eyes and vibranium-coated steel covering his upper body from neck to waist. The third was Kongstertine, a slimy greenish gorilla fish hybrid of a Frankenstein robot. The fourth was a creature that resembled a panther standing on its hind legs and covered his upper body and tail with magma-proof armor. It was made of molten lava rock. It was Magma's Exterminator, a 7-foot cybernetic cockroach terminator, was the final monster. They were the Joki's 5 generals 2 years ago. A formidable but ruthless TDMM was vanquished. They have now come to exact revenge on their master and lord. Magnus boasted as the Greetox continued to push through, knocking down every Leaf Ninja in sight. Dragonic, we're almost at the gates. Soon we'll watch this pathetic village burn to the ground and we'll finally have avenged Lord Joki for what that brat did to him. No, was Dragonic's response. The response stunned the other generals. He was snapped at by Sabretooth. Sabretooth was cut by a strong claw that caught him completely off guard. What the fuck do you mean no Dragonic? We have them on the run. We're here to avenge Lord Joki. Or are you going soft? A furious Dragonic with his foot on his throat stood over him. Who the fuck do you think you were talking to, Sabretooth? Let's me remind you, had it not for you would still be in Cyanogen IC stasis lockdown before being ERADECATEDI was the one freed all of you and had the 5 back in charge so that we could avenge Lord Joki. I was supposed to kill the brat that ended our master, but he died before I could get the chance. Destroying everything he holds near and dear would indeed bring us our revenge, but Dragonic let out a low menacing laugh induces goosebumps. It would be even sweeter to kill his precious little family and torture them while we eat them. Dragonic laughed uncontrollably. Dragonic was the most formidable of the 5 generals for a reason. In addition to being the largest and most formidable of the 5, Dragonic is also the most cunning and vicious of them all. With the exception of Joki, he was the second in command and Joki's right-hand man up until 2 years ago. Dragonic was the reason behind Joki's triumph for years. As the village continued to be devastated, the Greetox unleashed their power, declaring, "We will avenge Lord Joki no matter what. Greedo X, do not stop until you destroyed this RECERD village and have it burned to the ground for Lord Joki." Gamabunta, Gamahiru, and Gamakin were unexpectedly called upon to assist in defending the village. Katsuyu was then called upon to aid in the healing of the injured. Exterminator, get rid of those pesky toads. They're starting to annoy me. Magmas, fire a few magma bombs at that disgusting slug. Let's how long they last before they're all worn out. Dragonic laughed wickedly. Exterminator launched a tremendous volley of lasers and missiles into the air. The village and the toads were suffering severe harm. Due to their severe injuries, Gamabunta and the 2 toads were compelled to return. The Exterminator then demolished a few walls and the gates before going back to the others. With so many injured and only a few remaining to fight, Minato, Hiruzen, Asuma, Fugaku, Makoto, Kushina, Hiyashi, Itachi, Shisui, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Tenzo, Yamato were finding it difficult to defeat them. Even the Aburame, Inuzuka, and Ino Shikacho were hurt, but the Uchiha, Sarutobi, Uzumaki, and Namikaze were particularly hurt. From the beginning of the battle, the Hyugas had virtually disappeared. Then Itachi noticed magma bombs directly aimed at Masuko. Itachi hurried to her side and conjured up a huge wall of water to protect her from the assault. But the magma still struck Itachi. There were a few minor burns, but nothing major. When Masuko saw this, he immediately began to heal him. She slapped him on the head and said, "It's okay, Masuko, this is nothing to worry about." As she continued to heal him, a few tears began to fall down her cheeks. "Nothing to worry about, I'll kick your ass from here to Lightning Country if you tell me that there is nothing to worry about. You almost lost your arm because you protected me, Itachi, I can't lose you. Not after when things are going so well between the two of us." Itachi kissed her on the lips after gently raising her chin. 3 months after Naruto's departure, you see, Itachi was initially taken aback when Masuko invited him to lunch, but he sincerely accepted. After that, they began going on casual dates and eventually became a couple since the silver-haired medic was already a member of the family. Makoto and Fugaku gave their approval for their son to date him. Additionally, Makoto had grown fond of the young physician because he could discipline her son if he did something foolish. After gently wiping away her tears, he said, gazing into her dazzling chocolate-brown eyes, "I would rather die protecting you and those precious to me than watch them die in front of my eyes. I promise after all this is over, you and I can have that special time together." Itachi cracked a grin, knowing that special time meant making sweet love made Masuko flush. She gave him a quick shoulder punch. Itachi pulled her away from another magma bomb that had landed a few feet away from them, stopping her in her tracks. "You pervert, you've been hanging around with Kakashi again, haven't you? I keep telling you to stop." He kissed her cheek and hurried back to the front lines, saying, "Survive this first, then we can talk later." Constantine, growing impatient with waiting for the Greedox to eliminate the last of the shinobi, remarked, "Dragonic, this is taking too long. Let's finish this already and get this over with. I sense that this world would be a powerful and valuable domain that could allow us to resurrect Lord Joki. The possibility would be endless and I want to find that power immediately." Dragonic let out a sigh. He was aware that Constantine's IQ would be the one who could bring Lord Joki back. Has no boundaries. "Very well then, I too was getting bored in waiting. Let's end this." Several missiles and lasers were fired at the Greedoxes, forcing them to retreat a few feet before the five could launch another attack. Saber-tooth exclaimed, "What the hell? Where did that come from?" As the counterattack caught them off guard as they launched another counterstrike to stop the Greedox from moving forward, they noticed multiple battle fleets in the sky. Exterminator yelled angrily, "When did the Time Dimension Armada get here? I didn't even sense a portal opening. How is this possible?" Exterminator was made to alert them in the event of a surprise or counterattack. That's exactly what his exoskeleton was made for. Additionally, he should have been able to see through with ease because he was armed with some of the most advanced tracking, hunting, locating, and destructive weapons. Nevertheless, they had managed to get past them without being noticed. Teams Alpha, Beta, Omega, and the emergency teams were receiving orders from the Rangers inside the battle fleet. There are 30 men and women on each team. "Alright, listen up, Team Alpha, you're on frontline assault. Push the Greedox back. Do not let anywhere near the village." "Sir, yes sir." Team Beta, you're to guard from the rear through the air and lend backup should Team Alpha have problem taking down the Greedox. "Sir, yes sir." Team Omega, you're to guard the emergency teams and find any survivors and casualties that were caught in the crossfire. Emergency team, you're to heal any casualties you find. "Sir, yes sir." Next, Wes turned to face his fellow Rangers. "As for the 5 of us, we'll be taking on Dragonic and the 4 generals." Their eyes widened. Time Striker is a glider-like aircraft that transports the Time Dimension Rangers to their battle sites and flyers. "Okay guys, let's do this. Time Striker online. It can change into a handgun for the Megazord and fire from blasters mounted on the front, keeping their spirits up." They went down to the battlefield. With pride, the squad captains gazed at their teams. With the words, "Well, what are you waiting for? An invitation? There are lives at stake, so quit shaking in your boots and let's do this." "Sir, yes sir." Fighters were sent into the air, and warthogs were placed on the ground. The vehicles and weapons were related to Halo. Combat evolved. Team Alpha and Beta launched an attack at the front lines, eliminating every Greedox that came their way as the emergency teams searched for casualties and survivors. Team Omega helped them. The reset bomb was even planted by them, a stick-to-the-ground bomb the size of a hand grenade. When detonated, it immediately repairs any damage to destroyed buildings or land, with the exception of human life. Dragonic was enraged. How did Time Dimension arrive so swiftly and covertly? After more than half of their forces were destroyed and the remainder were still being destroyed, he looked at the village and realized they would not be able to win this battle at that moment. The 5 were knocked to the ground a few feet away by a couple of laser blasts that were fired from the sky. When they stood up and saw the Time Dimension Rangers in front of them, they snarled. As the Rangers produced their blasters and badges, Wes remarked, "Hold it right there. Dragonic, you and the 5 are under arrest for invading and assaulting a peaceful world, also for your crimes against Time Dimension, New Vortex City, and all of time and the dimensions 2 years ago." Dragonic snarled even louder. A monster with the head of a tyrannous rex, robotic arms that resembled claws, and a tail attacked them, saying, "Like hell we'll surrender to the likes of you Tyranno attack." A black portal opened, drawing them away. "That should be enough to buy us some time come, we'll seize victory another day." Wes fired a laser blast that was able to injure Dragonic prior to the portal closing, and Dragonic gloated, "We'll meet again Rangers." Damn it, he got away. Hang on guys, chrono-dimensional sabers online. 2 of these weapons are standard for each ranger and can be combined to form double-bladed lances. They can also deliver time strike, or dimension slash, attacks and shoot energy blasts. The rangers quickly dispatched the mutant monster with their sabers, but their triumph was short-lived as a dark red cloud appeared and black lightning struck the beast's remains, causing him to grow. Standing as tall as a 50-story building, he began to wreak havoc in the forest, heading directly for the village. "Oh no, he's heading straight for the village," Katie replied. A young man with black hair, green eyes, and a Time Dimension officer uniform with white boots was preparing the Time Dimension Rangers Time Flyers in the Armada's bridge. "We need to step it up." Then Max launched the Time Flyers. Initiating main sequence for Time Dimension Flyers, activating main thrusters and stabilizers. Max started the sequence with the words, "Time Flyers or online systems are fully activated and launch," according to the computer. Launching Flyer 1 inch. Time Flyer 1 launched as the hangar doors opened. Launching Flyers 2 and 3 inches. 2 and 3 came next. Launching Flyers 4 and 5 inches to help the Rangers. The last Flyers were prepared and dispatched. They mounted the Time Striker and flew directly above their Flyers, saying, "Rangers, the Flyers are launched and ready." "Okay. Let's do this." They landed inside the cockpit. After leaping off the Striker, the 5 Flyers joined forces to form a single, large ship, which was named Time Dimension Strike Ship Cyclone Defense. Tyranno was then caught in a cyclonic vortex as they whirled around him. "All right now, Cyclone Strike." After Tyranno was launched into the air, the Rangers' ship split back into 5 Flyers, entered the vortex, and blasted him from 5 sides before fusing back as the ship and blasting him with a vortex photon laser blast that completely destroyed him and reduced him to the size of a 7-inch toy. After splitting up, the Flyers went back to the Armada ship. In the dimension of dark matter, the 5 were enraged. The Rangers not only thwarted their plans, but they were also unable to exact revenge on their fallen master and leader. It will now be 3 or 4 years before they can attack the Leaf once more. The laser blast from the Red Ranger was the cause. Their portal transmographer, which enables them to flee into the dark matter dimension to recover and regain their strength for the upcoming conflicts, was destroyed. Without it, they are unable to leave the cursed dimension and avoid being transformed into dark antimatter. Additionally, they have to wait until the transmographer of the portal is fixed because the dark matter dimension has a limited amount of matter and equipment being cast into it throughout the dimensions of space-time. As Dragonic tensed to his wound, Magnus complained, "Blast those Rangers, they ruined everything we had planned for that worthless village, and now thanks to that accursed Red Ranger we're stuck here until who knows when." Constantine grinned sadistically and said, "I can fix the transmographer, but with the parts we have it won't be possible, but thanks to Red Ranger's little mishap I can now tell you that with what we have right now I can create another army of Greetoxes and a machine that gather the energies of this and other dimensions to help bring back Lord Joki, perhaps even stronger than ever, including us as well," Constantine said with a wicked grin. They were eager to hear this. Now the balance would shift in their favor if Constantine could fortify them and bring Lord Joki back to his former level of strength. Dragonic gave a menacing smile. "Alright then Constantine, if what you said is true then make it happen. I want New Vortex City, the Rangers, that brat's home, and all of Time Dimension to quiver in fear as we bring it down to its knees, and with the revival of our master we'll have all of the dimensions at our mercy. Let us prepare then." The generals of the mutant monster started preparing for their upcoming conquest. The dimension of Naruto. After sealing Tyranno inside a cryo-containment unit and removing their Flyers, the Rangers turned off the power. Katie was astounded by the newly installed weapon's immense power and remarked, "Can't believe that worked." Trip said sadly, "What did you expect? It was his original design, only enlarged and more powerful." "All right, we can this later. Right now we need to check up on the village and report in." Wes replied. They gave a nod. They went to see how everyone else was doing. Captains Anderson, Stalton, Eritrat, an alien species in human form from the 8th dimension, and Orion report. Sir Teams Alpha and Beta have successfully destroyed all the Greetoxes in sight and are being disposed of as we speak. Sir Teams Omega and the emergency teams gathered all the casualties and wounded and have successfully secured them. There are still some being treated at the medical site as we speak. We have also planted reset bombs everywhere except these 2 locations. Lucas's eyebrow went up. The hologram displayed a schematic of the village where the reset bombs were placed. "Show us the locations." The Hyuga compound and Danzo's root base were the only two locations where they were never planted. As you can see, people from Time Dimension take child abuse very seriously, especially after these two killed multiple children. These are the Hyuga compounds and root base. Katie grinned with delight as a thought suddenly occurred to her when Luke and Trip noticed this. They gradually retreated. They were aware that Katie's sly smile indicated trouble, so they didn't want to get involved. Wes pulled out the detonator and counted, saying, "All right, let's get everyone to clear out." Fire in the hole. The village was encircled by a burst of light. The fire was extinguished and the ruined structures were being restored. Everything appeared to be just as it was except, you know where. With teams Alpha and Beta following, the Rangers marched towards Minato and company, saying, "Okay, now that that's been taken care of, let's check on the survivors." A hand was offered to Minato as he was slowly standing up. As he was hauled to his feet, Minato said, "Need a hand? Thank you for saving our village and all our lives. I'm Minato Namikaze, the Hokage of the village hidden in the leaf," said Minato. "We know who you are as we know who most of you are. My name is Wesley Connors. I'm the Red Time Dimension Ranger. Along with me are my Ranger teammates and captains of teams Alpha, Beta, Omega and the emergency team. The one in blue is Lucas Austin Anderson. Green is Terrence Zabrian. Yellow is Catherine Knight and pink is Jennifer Watterson. These are the squad captains Anderson, Stalton, Eritrat and Orion." The others were simply waving to the captains. "Thank you once again for saving our village. We didn't come to save your home, we came to save the last precious memories of someone important to us. We couldn't." Jen. She was startled by Wes. Feeling guilty, she cast a downward glance. He pulled her into an embrace and said, "I'm sorry Wes, I was out of character." Wes glared at Minato and said, "It's okay, I know you miss him, I do too, all of us do. Let's not forget he has his family, his actual family waiting for his return." Minato gave them a perplexed look. By someone important to them, what did she mean? And why had they come for him? What was actually happening? "Hokage, I would suggest you gather your council for a meeting. Our commander will be arriving shortly as the fire daimyo, then you'll see what we meant." Trip spoke without any emotion. Minato was perplexed as to why the daimyo had to attend this meeting. A council meeting was called to order by Minato once the situation had been resolved. Kagero Inaba, the fire daimyo, had come. His pupil is dark and his eyes are small and round. He also dons traditional robes and the typical daimyo headpiece. He was accompanied by the 12 guardians of the fire temple, his bodyguards and advisors. Then the doors opened, revealing a number of captains, the Rangers, and Supreme Commander Stephen Williams. The clan heads were Fugaku Uchiha, Sume Inuzuka, Shibi Aburame, Shoza Akamichi, Inoichi Yamanaka, Shikaku Nara, Asuma Sarutobi, Tsunade Senju, Minato Namikaze, and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Now that everyone is here, let's start with those individuals first, followed by the elders and then the civilians. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Homura Mitokado, Kaharu Utatane, and Danzo Shimura were the elders. Mebuki Haruno led the civilian council, while Jiraiya represented the Sanin. The others, in my opinion, are irrelevant. One of Hiruzen's teammates was Kaharu, a traditional Japanese hairpin with two pearls hanging off the side held her hair in a twin bun. She is dressed in a jacket, a sash, and a basic long kimono that is fastened with an obi. Additionally, Kaharu has started squinting and hardly ever opens her eyes. Hiruzen's former teammate was Homura as well. In addition to having glasses, a beard, and gray hair, Homura is portrayed as always wearing a frown, even when he was younger. Additionally, he has a strong jawline, a facial feature that he has maintained into old age. He dresses similarly to Hiruzen when serving as Hokage and as a member of the Konoha Council. Now that everyone's been accounted for, let this meeting come to order. The first to pop the question was Sume Inuzuka. She has long, untamed, spiked brown hair, elongated canine teeth, nails, and pupils that resemble vertical slits. In addition, she has dark purple lipstick, markings over her eyes, and the clan fangs on her cheeks. She is dressed in the typical Konoha shinobi attire, which consists of a flak jacket, a black suit with rolled sleeves, and bandages around her legs. "Lord Hokage, if I may ask who these people are over there? I've never seen them in the village before." Stephen came forward. "I am Stephen Williams, Supreme Commander and high-ranking officer of Time Dimension of Dimension 3. We are a powerful task force that keeps the peace and balance between space, time and dimensions. In the year 4018 we are protector of space-time and we make sure that worlds and dimensions do not fall apart or clash into each other." This made everyone curious. What did he mean when he talked about space-time and worlds falling? The ones in different colored uniforms are the Power Rangers Time Dimension. An elite team dedicated their lives to ensure that space-time and dimensions thought the cosmos are kept safe and remain the same. We also make sure that neither wars nor destruction take place. Our task is to make sure that peace is maintained and the timelines of each world kept the way it should be and prevent time anomalies. Wesley Connors, the Red Ranger and leader of the team. Lucas Austin Anderson, the Blue Ranger. Terrence Zabrian, the Green Ranger. Catherine Knight, the Yellow Ranger, and Jennifer Watterson, the Pink Ranger. On the other hand, Danzo had discovered some extremely potent weapons that he could utilize for his own benefit. As he eyed the weapons the captains were holding, Danzo thought, with those weapons, I could make my route unstoppable. When one of the captains noticed this, he instinctively pointed it at Danzo. With the blaster pointed at Danzo, he remarked, "You got a problem, Cyclops." Steven gave the order, "All right, soldier, stand down." He brought his weapon down. "We're not here to kill anyone, not yet, at least until I give the orders, understand?" Steven stated. The captain answered, "Yes sir, good to know. And you?" he said, gesturing to Danzo. Instead, the table cracked as he slammed his fist down on it, saying, "Keep your hands to yourself. Danzo Shimura, I know who and what you are and what you're thinking right now, and believe me when I say this." The captain's and Ranger's eyes were filled with fear. Everyone but those TDs went pale when he said, "If my men catch any of your route coming even a 100 feet of my men or our armada, I'll make the Nine Tails attack look like child's play, understand? That man right there should not be tampered with." If what he said was true, Danzo simply had a neutral expression. "Was that a threat? And just how do you plan to do that?" Danzo inquired. Steven grinned. Wes pulled out a small needle-like gun and shot Danzo by the neck in an instant. "Oh, you want to know how? All right. Let me ask you something. Where were you when your village was being attacked? Why didn't you lend a hand when lives were at stake?" But before you answer, Wes, Paralyzer Ray. Danzo was only able to move his mouth. Danzo screamed at him, "What have you done to me? Why can't I move?" Steven grinned more. "That, you old warhawk, was a paralyzer gun. It shuts down a person's nervous system and completely paralyzes them, and don't bother trying to use what you have in your right arm. This gun was also designed to stop the flow of chakra, freezing it completely, but you'll still live." Every civilian and shinobi became increasingly pale. They possessed a weapon that could neutralize chakra. They were now aware that they needed to exercise caution when around these individuals. Danzo cursed inwardly that his plans to seize power were now public knowledge. "And as to where you were during the attack on this village, you were hiding and waiting for your chance to claim this village as yours. Kill the clan heads and the daimyo and start another war, isn't that right?" he asked. At that point, everyone began glaring at Danzo. "Relax everyone, we're not here to harm anyone. Expect a few who have caused quite the damage to a certain someone." Everyone was gasping. Inoichi got up and inquired. Inoichi had blue-green eyes, strong facial features, including a well-defined jawline, and long blonde hair that reached into his back. He wore his hair spiky on top and ended it in a long ponytail. Inoichi was spotted donning the typical flak jacket over a black ensemble that included a sleeveless red haori, forehead protection, and handguards. "What do you mean by a few? We have done nothing to provoke you into attacking us. Surely there must be some kind of misunderstanding. We couldn't have done something like what you said. And who is this certain someone, if I may ask?" Steven took out 4 metal rods. Each of them projected a 3-dimensional hologram while adhering to the ceiling like a magnet. This was a shock to everyone present. "Relax everyone, before we answer your questions, let me show you something. What you're about to see is virtual reality imaging of the Power Ranger history. Narrated by one of the oldest and perhaps the greatest Ranger of all time. Dr. Oliver has been around since the beginning of the first Rangers to where time dimension is today." Holorods displayed a picture of a man in his 20s who was roughly 5 feet 11 inches tall, had spiky black hair, fair skin, black eyes, and a little stumble on his chin. He was dressed in a brown coat, brown pants, chocolate-colored boots, and a long-sleeved black t-shirt. "My name is Tommy Oliver, and what you're about to see is a confidential record only to be viewed by those who were chosen. This video dialogue will show you the history of both my life and our history as a Power Ranger. My story began at Angel Groove 10,000 years ago. An evil space sorceress named Rita Repulsa was imprisoned in a space dumpster on the moon until 2 unsuspecting astronauts freed her from her imprisonment. Zordon, an intergalactic being who imprisoned Rita and had vowed to keep the Earth safe from any evil, asked Alpha 5 to summon some new warriors to protect the Earth. It was at Angel Groove Juice Bar where 5 teenagers with attitude were recruited to fight Rita Repulsa. They harnessed the powers of the dinosaurs and became Earth's first Power Rangers. The shinobi, daimyo and civilian watched as the 5 teenagers defeated gray soldiers and giant monsters of metallic beings. Under the guidance of Zordon, Jason, Billy, Kimberly, Zack and Trini bravely defended the Earth. Rita was then forced into creating her own Ranger. Rita speaks to Tommy. Tommy was taken prisoner and brainwashed into becoming the Green Ranger, saying, "Her evil magic was too strong, I couldn't fight it. She commanded me to destroy the Power Rangers and I almost succeeded, but my friends never gave up on me. They helped me destroy the Power Sword and freed me from Rita's spell. They invited him to join their squad. That's when I joined the team, but not for long, as after a few events I soon discovered the Green Ranger powers were only temporary. Tommy lost all of his abilities. Soon the Green Ranger powers were extinguished from me. But it was Zordon who bestowed upon me a new power. The powers of the White Ranger. I rejoined the team, and just in time. A new villain named Lord Zed was attempting to crush the Earth, sending wave after wave of attacks. A new power source had to be found, and with 3 Rangers leaving we turned to some old friends. Trini, Zach and Jason passed on their powers to Rocky, Adam and Aisha. With the old Rangers gone and the new Rangers stepped forward and joined the team just in time, because Rita and Zed teamed up in becoming our most powerful foes, yet bringing along with them a new terror, Rito Revolto, Rita's brother. With skeptical expressions on their faces, everyone simultaneously said, "She's related to that thing." Had to believe. Imagine what the first Rangers had to go through, said Katie. The new team fought bravely, but it wasn't enough. Rito destroyed our Zords and our powers, but a Ranger never gives up. Zordon sent us on a quest to find Ninjor, a warrior from the past who showed us the secrets of the ancient ninja. Jiraiya inquired inquisitively, "Wait, there were ninjas in their words as well?" "Yes, but unlike the ninjas in this world, others can't use chakra at all. Most ninjas were only known to be assassins and nothing more. Now let us continue." They watched as the Rangers fought against Tengus, which resembled black birds. Our quest was completed. We gained new powers, new weapons, and new Zords, but along with new powers came new enemies. The daimyo gasped, "Those things are really nasty." But along with new enemies came new friends. When Kimberly chose to leave the team, Catherine was the only choose. Catherine assumed the Pink Ranger powers, and just in time a new villain known as Master Vile, the father of Rita and Rito, unleashed his terror on the planet. Everyone exclaimed in shock, "He's their father." As they went on, Trip remarked, "Had to believe that even though they don't resemble one another, they're still related." He successfully turned back the clock, returning us into kids, and without our powers we couldn't combat him or his evil. Desperate, we sought the help of the alien Rangers of planet Aquitar to combat Master Vile. While the alien Rangers protected the planet, my friends and I had our own mission. We were each teleported to a different time period where we were to obtain pieces of a fragment known as the Zeo Crystal, which would be the only chance we had in returning to our regular time and ages. But when the last fragment was recovered, Aisha chose to stay in the time period and sending her replacement Tanya, who assumed the Yellow Ranger. However, when we assumed things were back to normal, they took a turn to the worst. Rita and Zed's henchmen Rito and Galdar planted a bomb in the heart of the command center. Alpha had successfully teleported us out of the command center. Beneath the ruins of command center was where we found the Zeo crystals. The ground opened beneath us and guided us into the next chapter of our lives. We were given the powers of the Zeo crystal and become the Power Rangers Zeo. At the same, a new evil moved into Rita and Zed's territory. The Machine Empire and its leader King Mondo. His forces were too strong for Rita and Zed, which forced them to flee from the moon. King Mondo and his minions planned to conquer the Earth. We faced them bravely, but when we needed help we turned to an old friend. Jason returned and assumed the powers of the Gold Ranger. Anyway, after high school graduation we were ready to face the world, but not after going on one final adventure as Rangers. It was time to shift into a higher gear. The old Rangers were gone forever and the Turbo Rangers were born. A space pirate named Divatox launched an attack on Earth. We were given the powers of Turbo to face her head on, but with Rocky indisposed we had to rely on our new ally, Justin. Homura eyed the boy and remarked, "That boy looks like he's only 12 years old. Must be quite a feat to be a ranger at such a young age." It was soon time for me and my fellow Rangers to move on. So it was then that we had to choose 2 candidates to take up our mantle. TJ, Cassie, Ashley and Carlos proved that they had what it takes to be a ranger and were worthy to assume the powers of Turbo. But Divatox and her Piranatrons were relentless as she staged an attack on the Turbo Rangers command center. The Rangers fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. Divatox destroyed the command center as well. Their powers, she headed for space and her plans for Earth's ultimate destruction. The Rangers had to Divatox into space in order to stop her, leaving behind the world they knew and Justin. The journey into space was treacherous and a line between friend and foe was drawn to a pinpoint. But Andros proved he was more than just a friend. He was just the kind of leader that they needed to lead against a new enemy. An enemy named Astronema. When they thought they had no hope, Andros brought them the Astromorphers, bringing together a new team of Rangers. They were known as the Power Rangers in space, but 5 wasn't enough. The Rangers soon freed the Silver Ranger Zane from his cryogenic sleep. The Silver Ranger became a noble addition to the team. Together the Rangers defeated Astronema and the Earth was safe. but it came with a price. Zordon sacrificed himself to prevent the villain from attacking the Earth. They watched as Andros destroyed the tube, releasing Zordon, who then unleashed a strong beam that reduced all of the monsters and villains to dust. So that's it then, no more villains. Monsters or evil beings wanting to destroy the Earth after all, they're all turned to dust? A civilian asked. As the pictures kept playing, Trip remarked, it's never over. For every ending there is a new beginning. We had believed that it was all over, but deep in space another battle raged. On the distant planet of Miniroy, 5 new heroes, Leo, Damon, Kendricks, Maya and Kai, retrieved the Galaxy Sabers and were chosen to become the Power Rangers of the Lost Galaxy. They had to combine their powers to defeat their mortal enemy Trakina. She threatened to destroy the space colony TerraVenture, and she took on horrifying new form. The Red Ranger and his Battleizer were the colony's only hope. With Trakina destroyed, the people of TerraVenture were forever grateful. The Power Rangers of the Lost Galaxy. Meanwhile, back on Earth, an elite team was being put together to establish against an army of demons. One of the civilians said, "Wait, demons, you mean they?" But Minato's glare silenced him. Please continue. Carter, Joel, Kelsey, Chad and Dana took the positions as the Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. They helped those in need, but the Rangers, however, needed one more to complete their mission. That's when Ryan joined the team as the Titanium Ranger. With their powers combined, they sealed away the Demon Queen Banshira forever in the tomb where she and her army came from. One of the Guardians questioned, does this mean that the demons were sealed away forever? The Rangers gave a headshake. Yes, but some were. A small number of them were able to escape, but they were destroyed by the same Rangers along with some help from other Rangers. A picture of a spacecraft crashing on a beach after passing through a vortex. All 4 of them were dressed in identical jumpsuits, 2 women and a man with green hair and a gem on his forehead. They formed a new team after meeting another man. Rangers from the far future, Jen, Katie, Lucas and Trip, traveled through time and enlisted the help of Wes Collins, the ancestor of the original Red Time Force Ranger, in order to capture a mutant criminal named Rancic who escaped a maximum security transport. Replied Tommy. They saw a man who had obtained a morpher and transformed into an exact replica of a Red Time Force Ranger, and they said, but it took a modern-day hero to help get the job done. The Ranger of Quantum. It took a while for Eric to realize that the greatest virtue of being a Ranger wasn't the power but the reward of helping mankind. As he considered what Eric did for power, heroes, and thought, this Eric character almost sounds like my former power-hungry traitorous student Orochimaru. Wait, if Time Force is from the future just like you, then why aren't they having the same sort of abilities you have? Asked Shikaku. The Rangers' heads dropped. As she clicked the video clip, Katie remarked, you will learn everything about us as you continue to watch our Ranger history. In search of his destiny, Cole Evans joined the Wild Force Rangers alongside Taylor, Alyssa, Danny and Max. Using the powers of the ancient animal spirits, the Rangers battled the evil orgs, creatures determined to conquer the Earth through pollution and destruction. The final member to join the team was Merrick the Lunar Wolf. With their powers, they brought an end to Master Org and saved not only the Animarium but Turtle Cove as well. One of the 12 Guardians remarked, amazing, it seems that you Rangers tend to get more and more powerful. It's no wonder you were able to keep the peace on your worlds. He was even more astounded by the Rangers' increasing strength. Playing the part of Images, Trip said, yes, well, but there is some more Ranger history to continue. In 3 figures, 2 boys and a girl, were seen changing into Rangers. When the Earth was on the verge of destruction, another friend, Cam, traveled back in time to retrieve the one power that could save them all. The power of the Green Samurai Ranger. In their final battle against Lothor, the Rangers made the ultimate sacrifice by giving up their powers to banish Lothor into the abyss of evil. However, it was the power of thunder that proved to be both their greatest challenge and their greatest enemy. Shane, Tori, and Dustin, 3 unlikely ninja students, had commanded the powers of earth, air, and water to form the Power Rangers Ninja Storm. I chose to become a teacher at Reefside High School while I was enjoying my retirement as a Ranger. Ethan, Kira, and Connor were 3 abrasive teenagers I met there. It was necessary to use the Dino Gem's abilities to create a new team after the Jurassic creep Mesogog returned. Everyone saw Tommy's pupils transform into the Dino Rangers in Power Rangers Dino Thunder. However, 3 wasn't enough on their own to transform into the Black Dino Ranger. I had to use the Black Dino Gem's abilities. Mesogog, however, refused to take any chances. Trent became his new White Dino Ranger and almost destroyed us. Just like Rita and Lothor did, we were able to save Trent because of the persuasion of his father, Anton Mercer, who was battling Mesogog's evil influence. We vanquished Mesogog and advanced to greater and better things by giving up the power of the dinosaur gems. It was incredible that someone could bring something back to life using genetic technology. However, one question still needs to be answered. Are Rangers still felt? Steven simply shook his head in agreement when the daimyo asked him. As he played the next clip for them, Steven said, Yes, there still are Rangers who fight the good fight like these Rangers here. Later in 2025, after Earth has accepted extraterrestrial life, humans will be able to coexist peacefully with them. Peace, however, is short-lived as the Trubian Empire, which conquers planets, turns its destructive focus to Earth. The B-Squad Rangers, which include Skylar, Sky, Tate, Bridge Carson, Sydney, Sid, Drew, and their commander, Anubis Kruger, take over as Earth's first line of defense after the SPDA squad disappears without a trace. Tensions threaten to split the red and yellow SPD Rangers after two ex-criminals, Jack Landors and Elizabeth Z. Delgado, join the squad. The Rangers must set aside their disagreements and act as a unit because the alien threat is getting stronger by the second. They observed how effectively they were able to collaborate and function as a team under extreme duress. The B Squad demonstrates its strength by defeating the former SPD Elite Squad, and it is eventually revealed that the A Squad is indeed evil. Together, they use light-speed Zord vehicles, intergalactic weapons, and teamwork to fight evil and become one of the greatest forces for good. Power Rangers SPD. They witnessed the last battle in which Rangers saved the world and Kruger vanquished his arch-enemy and imprisoned him in SPD with assistance from the SPD commander and his wife Asenia. B Squad eliminates the real threat. Omni and Grum were arrested for their crimes in front of SPD headquarters on Earth by Kruger. Now return to the present in Briarwood, a small town. 5 teenagers, Nick, Charlie, Madison, Vita, and Xander, who are destined to form the Power Rangers Mystic Force, are enlisted by the Great Sorceress and Ice Ranger Udana to fight the now liberated undead army at Rootcore, a hidden sanctuary in the magical realm. The Rangers hone their magical abilities as the Rangers develop as individuals. The Zenitome gives them access to magical spells that aid them in their impending conflicts. The Rangers begin to use their magic and gain strength. Really amazing with the Rangers' powers, Danzo remarked. Imagine the power that we could harness, we could be unstoppable. Everyone gave him a glare. Danzo, you're still on thin ice, and nobody gives a damn about what you think. As they watched the Rangers past, Minato threatened to slam a Rasengan down your throat if you opened your mouth again. Nick discovers his true ancestry while developing their new abilities. He is the son of Udana and Limbo, the first Red Ranger before he and the undead army sealed themselves away. They even learned that Limbo was still alive and had been transformed into Korag the Night Wolf by Octomus the Master's evil spell. They also received help from an old friend and a new ally. After being deceived by the person he considered a friend, Kalindor, also known as Imperius, Daggeron the Solaris Knight and his companion Genji returned together. They were able to save Limbo and acquire Wolf Ranger as a new ally. They saw all of Rootcore's magical beings and the Briarwood residents support the Rangers as they vanquished the evil that had plagued them for so long together. They used their magic to defeat the Master and Undead army from occupying the Earth. Renowned explorer and billionaire Andrew Hartford discovers the fabled mystical crown known as the Corona Aurora while exploring a new archaeological cave world. This discovery releases Flurious and Mortar from their captivity after they are unable to steal the crown and awaken the Sentinel Knight, the guardian who dispersed the crown and its jewels on Earth in an attempt to keep it out of the wrong hands while he was asleep. Along with his son Mac, who joins Operation Overdrive as the 5th team member, Andrew enlists 4 exceptional teenagers, Will, Dax, Ronnie, and Rose, to become Power Rangers. They come across the legendary Miratrix, who is committed to locating the jewels and rescuing her master Camdor. The Rangers also come across Tyzon, an extraterrestrial who traveled to Earth from the planet Mercuria in order to thwart the evil Fearcat's plans to free their army, which had been held captive in a mirror world. Eventually, Tyzon was persuaded to join Operation Overdrive as the Mercury Ranger, and he proved to be a valiant team member. When Thrax, son of Lord Zed and Rita Repulsa, escapes imprisonment from the Sentinel Knight, everyone exclaimed in shock, "He's Rita and Zed's son." Who would have imagined that Rita and Zed would even have children? Especially someone as ugly as Zed. No offense to Power Rangers fans, because that's how I felt at first and I adore Power Rangers. It's unbelievable that those two had a child as they focused on him, Jen remarked, especially when he looks like this. Homura remarked, eager to see what would happen next. Well, he does look a little like Zed, but let's continue with the clip, shall we? In order to create a malevolent coalition and sever the Rangers' ties to the universal morphing grid, he enlists Flurious, Molter, Camdor, Miratrix, and the Fearcats. 5 former Power Rangers: Adam the Black Power Ranger, Xander the Green Mystic Ranger, Bridge the SPD Red Ranger, Kira the Yellow Dino Ranger, and Tori the Blue Wind Ranger, assist the Rangers in their quest to find the fabled sword Excelsior, which can restore their powers and the Sentinel Knight. Together, The Power Rangers defeat Thrax, shattering the evil alliance, and Mac discovers something shocking about himself. Mac started to doubt his own existence after realizing he was an android, but he persevered for his friends by joining the Sentinel Knight and changing his name to the Red Sentinel Ranger. Miratrix was imprisoned inside a gem for all eternity before the Fearcats and Camdor were permanently destroyed in the final battle for the Octavian Chalice. Molter was destroyed by Flurious, who also took the crown and the jewels. Flurious uses the Corona Aurora's power to freeze San Angeles as a whole. Mac gives his life to completely destroy Flurious in a last-ditch effort to save the world. When the Sentinel Knight shows up, he uses the Corona Aurora to revive Mac. When Mac awakens, he discovers that he is now human because of the crown. Tyzon and Vela are reunited thanks to Norg, and the Power Rangers continue living their lives after rescuing the world from evil. That was quite the feat those kids had accomplished. It was a truly amazing effort, especially from that Mac boy. He almost makes me think of Tobarama-sensei. Hiruzen remarked, "Don't you, Kaharu, Homura," as the videos genuinely brought back memories of his old sensei. Yes, Hiruzen. Kaharu glared at Danzo, who remained unresponsive, saying, "It was the same way he sacrificed himself to save us all, even this traitor right here." Lucas played the next video and said, "Now that that's settled, let's continue with the Ranger history, shall we?" A covert Kung Fu clan has escaped, and the Pai Zhuk, also known as the Order of the Claw, has chosen their 3 best members to battle the spirit of Dai Shi, a pure evil, who has been imprisoned and securely protected by them. Theo, Lily, and Jared were selected. However, Jared proved to be a poor choice, and a cub named Casey was to replace him. Dai Shi took over Jared's body after killing Master Mao. The 3 were sent to locate Robert, also known as RJ, who gave them the unique gift of becoming Power Rangers. Before using his training to battle the Rangers, Dai Shi defeated them and captured RJ by reviving the deadly overloads Carnosaur and Angelica to teach them the ways of terror, deceit, and fear. Master Mao transported the Rangers to the spirit world to receive training from 3 deceased masters, Master Rill, Master Gwyn, and Master Lope. In order to save RJ, the 3 Rangers were able to upgrade to Master Mode with amazing jets and handheld claw weapons as a result. Dai Shi tampered with RJ's wolf spirit, which he acquired by following his own path, turning him into a werewolf. In the end, RJ's werewolf issue was resolved because of his new friendship with Flid the Fly, who was once human, as he learned to rely on his friends and transformed into the Wolf Ranger. Dominic, an itinerant who had yet to discover his way, decided that becoming a Rhino Ranger was the way for RJ's old friend from Pai Zhuk. Dominic was able to take control of the Rhino Steel Megazord and permanently destroy Carnosaur after Master Mao gave him the Control Dagger, which everyone now seeks to control the Rhino Steel Zord from the Rhino Nexus. As soon as Dai Shi lost control over Jared, the remaining Phantom Beast generals blamed Camille and sent warriors against her. After seeing that Jared had saved her, Casey went to Dai Shi's temple to save Jared. When Scorch and Dai Shi started a new beast war, Dai Shi opened a portal to the spirit world and resurrected all of his fallen warriors, including the fallen masters. Jared and Camille worked together to aid in a battle against the Rangers. When Jared ultimately makes the decision to join them, he assists in Dai Shi's weakness, and the 3 protectors ultimately eliminate Dai Shi forever. The enigmatic and evil Venjix computer network was trying to take over and destroy the entire planet in the not-too-distant future. It had been successful, almost taking over the whole planet. Fortunately, in order to protect themselves from the pollution and machines that Venjix has unleashed, humanity has withdrawn from the threat and moved into environmentally protected domed cities. To combat the attacking machine army determined to conquer the world, an elite force of Rangers, Scott, Finn, Summer, Ziggy, and Dylan, must learn to drive and control a fleet of highly sophisticated biotech vehicles in the gleaming city of Corinth. However, they encountered 2 unlikely people when they needed assistance: Dr. K, 2 of the original manufacturers of the Ranger gear, and Gem and Gemma, who were presumed dead, took on the roles of the Gold and Silver Rangers. The human-machine war came to an end when they defeated Venjix together. It's amazing how powerful these Rangers seem to get. The daimyo glared at Danzo, who was still immobilized from the ray Wes had fired at him, saying, "These battles and their loyalty to protect others and do the right thing truly are something of inspiration and motivation, unlike some people." Nihilok monsters invaded Japan centuries ago, but samurai warriors used power symbols that were passed down from parent to child to defeat them. However, the malevolent Nihilok have reappeared and intend to inundate the planet. Fortunately, a new generation of Rangers prevents them from doing so. The samurai of the Power Rangers, the mysterious and age-old samurai symbols of power, which grant them control over the elements of fire, water, sky, forest, earth, and light, must be mastered by Jaden, Kevin, Mike, Mia, Emily, and Antonio. With the help of their loyal animal Zords and their all-knowing mentor G, they fight the evil Master Xandred, who has now teamed up with the evil Serator, a new supervillain, as well as the dark forces of the Netherworld and an enigmatic warrior who is determined to cause destruction. In order to defend humanity against the evil villains of the Netherworld, the Samurai Rangers discovered how to use the fabled black box to create all new Megazord combinations, transform into Super Samurai, and access the power of their ancestors to activate Shogun mode. The Bullzooka, a brand new super weapon that uses powerful lasers to aid in the fight against the evil Serator, will also make its debut. The Rangers used all of their symbolic abilities to defeat Master Xandred in their last conflict. Those Samurai Rangers, in my opinion, both adhere to the traditional samurai ways, and their symbolic abilities are quite similar to our own sealing jutsus. As he closely examined the resemblance of the same sealing ability they employed, Hiruzen remarked, "Perhaps they also possess the ability to use chakra. Unfortunately, we cannot use chakra where we come from. We don't have that, even though ours is similar to yours." Earth was enjoying everlasting peace until evil aliens arrived to destroy Earth. Gosei, Earth's ancient guardian and Zordon's former student with his robotic assistant, Tensao, awoke and called on a new team of teenagers: Troy, Noah, Jake, Emma and Gia to fight off this new threat. They became the Power Rangers Megaforce. They gained superhuman strength, agility, and mastery over martial arts. In addition to defending Earth against the Warstar aliens, other monstrous factions emerged to challenge the Mega Rangers. Under the leadership of a malevolent alien named Prince Vrak, toxic beasts rise from their slimy underground lair to attack the Earth, and a ruthless robot army launches an offensive from their deep-sea compound. In order to face these new threats, the Rangers must unlock powerful battle modes to fight their adversaries, as well as gaining a new ally, Robo Knight, a robot warrior created by Gosei long before the first Rangers even began. Then two new enemies, the Messenger and Metal Alice, emerged, and Vrak took on a horrifying new form. The Messenger then attacks and demorphs the Rangers, but even without their powers, Rangers didn't give up and fought the Messenger unmorphed. Robo Knight appears and fights the Messenger alone and is defeated. He then transfers his Morpher's energy to the Gosei Morphers and hands his Robo Blaster to Troy. With their powers restored, they manage to defeat the Messenger. The exploded Messenger's head tells Vrak to run, saying that the Armada is coming and they will not recognize him as his current cyborg form. The Rangers remorph and the Armada begins its invasion. The Rangers fought bravely but were overwhelmed by the Armada's forces. Gosei then presents the Rangers with new morphers that unlock a Super Mega mode, which will allow them to access the powers of every previous team of Power Rangers. Because Asuma was curious about these Rangers' ability to use someone else's powers without experiencing any negative effects that might affect them in the near future, she asked, "Wait, does mean that they can use the powers of the previous Rangers with ease and not have any side effects whatsoever?" Yes, these Rangers can indeed unlock the powers of their predecessors without having drawbacks, except one: they must earn these powers in order to use them to their full potential. Now let's continue. Wes began to play the clips. With a new mode and new powers, the Rangers triumphed over the invading Armada and saved the city. The Rangers continued to defend the Earth as well, gaining a new ally, Orion, the Silver Ranger from the planet Andresia, who came seeking revenge after the Armada wiped out his planet's population and vowed to stop the Armada. The Rangers brought Orion to their command center, and with Gosei permission they welcomed Orion to the team. The Silver Ranger became a noble addition to the team as they faced the new enemy head-on. Prince Varric, Vrak's older brother, was furious that his invading army was defeated, and worse, that his brother had failed to eliminate them before his arrival. But Varric was defeated by the Rangers, which caused Vrak to capture Orion and reprogrammed Robo Knight to fight the Rangers. But the Rangers were able to save both Orion and Robo Knight. Together they defeated Vrak and saved their city. Emperor Mavro, the father of Vekker and Vrak, was furious that his sons were killed by the Rangers. He sent every last battlecruiser to Earth to not only destroy the Rangers and avenging his sons, but destroying Earth as well for opposing against him and for fighting back. The Super Mega fought wave after wave, but Emperor Mavro's armada had overpowered the Rangers and destroyed their Zords, and leaving the city in ruins. Emperor Mavro then sent a message stating that the Rangers are gone and tomorrow at dawn Earth will be destroyed. But the Rangers weren't about to give up. Even without their powers or Zords, they will fight till the end. They regrouped to form a plan to defeat the Armada. Just then they were visited by some old friends. Every Ranger of the past, including myself, had gathered together in order to fight the Armada and save the Earth. Gosei contacted the Mega Rangers and bestowed words of encouragement despite the loss of their Zords, and had restored their powers and their old Megazords. As the ex-Borg's army attacked, all the Rangers charged with confidence. As the fierce battle for the Earth's survival had begun, the Rangers had taken out all the ex-Borgs, but the Armada continued to push forward despite how many Rangers stood in their way. Mavro then used the Reanimator to bring back some previous villains to fight the Rangers. The villains laid havoc on the city in their Mega form. But they were defeated when the Rangers combined the powers of their Megazords and defeated their once fallen enemies. It then came down to Mavro and the Mega Rangers to determine the fate of the Earth. The battle was beyond epic as the Rangers were being outmatched by Mavro. The Rangers still did not give up as they combined all their legendary modes and all their powers, and together they were able to defeat Emperor Mavro, but not before Mavro activated his flagship's new weapon, the Titan Bomb. This bomb, once detonated, would rip anything into the fabric of space-time and will tear holes through dimensions, causing worlds to collapse, and lives will be erased of the face of the universe. The Time Force Rangers were the only ones who knew how to destroy the bomb, but it also meant that they had to board the mothership of the Armada alone. The other Rangers protested against it, stating that there is another way, but time was running out, and if they don't stop that bomb from detonating, then not just Earth but so will other worlds as well be gone. Without even hesitating, the Time Force Rangers used their time jets and snatched the bomb away from Earth before detonating. They took it directly into the mothership of the Armada, but after planting the bomb the Rangers were ambushed by ex-Borgs. They knew that this was to be their last battle, and so Tommy began to cry. They battled all the way to the final ex-Borg before the Titan exploded, tearing apart the entire Armada cruiser fleet. In the process, the explosion was so powerful that it was felt as though the Earth was trembling and shifting. The fragments of the destroyed ships started to make their way into the atmosphere. As several tons of wrecked battlecruisers fell to the ground, everyone sought shelter. All that remained of the Time Force Rangers were their Morphers, and there were very few remnants of what had been destroyed in the explosion. It was the worst tragedy in history when the Time Force Rangers sacrificed their lives to save their home, friends, and family from destruction. They were making the ultimate sacrifice. History will remember them as the world's and dimension's saviors, so the memories of one of the greatest Rangers will live on after his friends' and partners' funerals. Eric the Quantum Ranger vanished from sight and was never heard from again after being brought back to Time Force headquarters. The Chronomorphers were repaired and restored in case they were ever needed again. That concludes my history with the Power Rangers. May those fallen Rangers' souls rest in peace. Thank you. Everyone turned to face the Supreme Commander as the hologram went out. The Chronomorphers started acting strangely after 16 years. When it began to open a portal to a different dimension, we initially assumed it was a malfunction. As they experienced new life in a world, some of the crew and the Ranger candidates were drawn in. After some time, we were able to figure out that the Morphers had managed to travel through dimensions by somehow absorbing some of the Titan's blast and storing its data in the grid. Time dimension is the name that results from this. In addition to ensuring that the time periods in those dimensions are not altered or disturbed, we were able to establish alliances and a truce between worlds. These were the primary jobs. Steven concluded their introduction in the Power Rangers and Time Dimension Rangers histories by saying, to secure peace, trust, and harmony throughout space-time and dimensions everywhere. Steven looked at him before calling Wes, saying, before you ask me any questions or before I give you my answers, would the following people please step forward? Everyone was impressed by the significant role that Time Dimension plays, especially when they are the ones responsible for ensuring the safety of all the worlds throughout the dimension everywhere. Wes took out a scroll, a letter, 2 bracelets, and 2 necklaces in the shape of hearts as he stood in front. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Mebuki Haruno, and Fugaku Uchiha. Hiruzen was perplexed as to why Enma was required, but he summoned him and gave an explanation. Oh, and Lord Sarutobi, please summon Lord Enma. This letter is addressed to him. When Enma recognized the handwriting on the letter, he grabbed him by the neck in fear and rage. Lord Enma, this letter was addressed to you and only you can open it. Where is he? What has taken place with him? He told me that he would write this letter only if something devastating happened to him. Now tell me, where is Naruto? Itachi, who was still in his Anbu gear, didn't care as he threw his mask to the ground and slammed Steven into the wall, his Sharingan blazing in anger. If what Enma said was true, it would make them regret the day they were born. Mebuki was concerned because she knew that if something had to happen to Naruto, Sakura would be in excruciating pain, and she silently prayed that nothing bad would happen to her godson and future son-in-law. Did Lord Enma's statement hold water? Has Naruto experienced any changes? As you can see, Itachi became very protective of Naruto during their time together and would stop at nothing to keep him safe. Steven remained silent, knowing that something would happen and that it would be difficult to let Naruto go. But now he was going to break the news that would devastate them. Itachi became agitated, drawing his katana and pressing against the man's neck. I wouldn't inquire once more. My tiny brother is where? Did you do anything to him? Steven grabbed Itachi's hand and pushed it aside, realizing that this would be the hardest thing he had ever done. Telling his family about Naruto's passing, Itachi screamed out, and everyone except Enma, Asuma, Hiruzen, Mebuki, and Fugaku had never seen Itachi act like this before. Yes, we are aware of Naruto's fate, Steven was unable to say. We know where he is, and no, we had nothing to do with his. He was afraid of what would happen if they found out that he had given his life in order to stop the apocalyptic end of the world. His what? Please tell me where my grandson is at this moment and stop wasting our time. Kushina was perplexed, wondering what was going on and why everyone was so excited about Naruto. She didn't understand anything at the moment because she was still under the memory seal Naruto had placed on her. Jiraiya was also curious as to how these people knew Naruto. Minato was incensed. These men knew where his son was, what was going on, and where he is, and yet they had the gall to act like nothing happened. Unforgito was infuriated. Could someone kindly clarify the situation? Who is this Naruto character that everyone keeps bringing up? The daimyo asked, projecting an image of a 7-year-old boy with blue eyes, blonde hair, whiskers on his cheeks, wearing a white-collared shirt, long black pants with multiple pockets, blackish blue boots, and a red jacket with white flames. When the image was finished, it revealed who it was. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the son of Minato Namikaze Uzumaki and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto was once Uzumaki Namikaze, the former heir of the Uzumaki Namikaze clan and the son of Minato Namikaze Uzumaki and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. What did you mean when you said, former son and heir? How can Naruto be the former heir when he is still the current heir when he has always been my and Minato's son? Kushina asked in confusion. Itachi, do you know how to break that memory seal Naruto placed on them? Steven sighed, and everyone's eyes, with the exception of a few, widened. Naruto had placed memory seals on his own parents, and he had not even taught him the fundamentals of sealing. Then it dawned on Kushina that they had not taught him anything at all. She had been neglecting her oldest child for so long that she was unable to recall anything about him. Itachi walked over to check the seal Naruto had placed on her. It's almost broken, but don't worry, tell us, now, where Naruto is, as he nearly cracked the seal that was put on her, Itachi demanded. Are you certain you're prepared for what you're going to witness? Lucas answered, let me warn you, you won't like what you are about to see. What nonsense you're hiding doesn't matter to me. Hurry up and spit it out already, please. My nephew is where? Asuma began to lose his temper, saying, and if any of you had done anything to hurt him, oh help me, I'll make you regret you were born. All right, then, but first, let's show these civilian bastards and asswipes who detested Naruto why they should be thankful for him before we tell you where he is, excluding those who genuinely cared for him. Before he left the village, Naruto's life was like this. With a hint of venom in her voice, Jen said, and this is what really happened during his 6 years in this hellhole. The holoprojector flashed imaging videos of Naruto's life, showing everything from his first beating to his rape. Some of the videos were removed to keep them secret, such as how he replicated his jutsus and seals and a few very private memories. Kushina was sobbing uncontrollably as the projector played her son's life. She could still hear him calling for her to come and save him, but it had been ignored for so long, leaving his cries unheard. Mommy, please help me, please save me, mommy. She even saw herself beating him until his bones broke and he became unconscious. She also saw how his 2 siblings were the ringmasters, laughing at his suffering and using him as a scapegoat along with their friends. Mainly Menma, and Kiba soon was undoubtedly going to give her son a good earful of reprimands before giving him a proper beating down. As more guilt began to mount, Kushina thought, Naruto, I'm so sorry, please forgive me for not being a proper mother to you and for not being there when you needed me, please. Mommy's really sorry, baby. Minato wasn't doing any better. He wanted to turn away, but he couldn't because his son's life was being shown on the holoprojector, and he had chosen to ignore all the pain, abuse, neglect, and suffering that Naruto had endured. Why did I choose to make my son's life full of misery and suffering? Naruto, I'm so sorry for what I've done. I truly don't deserve to call myself Hokage if I couldn't even protect my own son. Daddy's really sorry, Minato thought, heartbroken by the life Naruto had endured. Each time he was beaten, Minato and Kushina would inflict more pain on his already battered body, wondering why they had never taken the initiative to even notice the poor boy's suffering. They even witnessed Naruto being temporarily blinded for a month by some Chunin when he was only 3 years old. On that day, Minato and Kushina left with all of the Uzunamis for a 3-week annual family gathering, and for the 3rd time, they had forgotten about him. They witnessed how they accused Naruto of lying and grounded him without food when they returned to where he was gradually regaining his sight. They also witnessed Naruto making friends with the 9 Tails, which initially alarmed them. Yes, The HOLOPROJECTOR show everything including MEMBRIES within a person's SUBCONCIOUS dimensions and other dimensions. When one of the civilian councilmen foolishly called him a monster and a demon, Kushina was the one who silenced him right away. Surprisingly, Kushina's murderous intent increased when they called her baby a monster, frightening and daring anyone to call him that again in her presence. After all, hell has no wrath like a woman's scorn. Especially in angry mothers. Even Minato was releasing enormous amounts of ki to anyone who called his son a demon. They witnessed how they had driven Naruto to the brink of suicide and how he and Sakura met and fell in love. Both parents nearly suffered heart attacks upon witnessing what they had said and done to him. They knew that if Naruto had not met Sakura, they would never have been able to prevent him from taking his own life. They were thankful that Naruto did not commit suicide, but they still felt bad about what they had done to him, and they couldn't help but feel both proud and disappointed when they saw what Naruto had accomplished during his brief stay in the village. Proud that Naruto had accomplished so much in such a short period of time, and disappointed that neither of them had assisted or guided him in reaching his accomplishments, particularly with the numerous seals, jutsus, and techniques he had created. He also shocked everyone by being the one who had initially saved the Uchiha twins from a Jonin and a war veteran, which astounded everyone in the room. It was quite a feat for a 4-year-old to go head-to-head and defeat someone of that caliber, and he begged Asuma not to tell anyone about it. Was it Naruto who actually asked you to keep this to yourself? Asuma simply nodded while Minato asked in a slightly muffled voice, amazed that Naruto had defeated a Jonin-level opponent. He did, Asuma said without even glancing at him, or should I say that he practically begged and made me promise not to tell anyone, but I brought him over to the Uchihas because they deserved to know the truth about who rescued their kids. However, we're his parents. Asuma glared at Kushina, who practically yelled, he should have told us about this. Would you have trusted him as much as you trusted Menma and Natsumi? No, I seriously doubt that, especially given that you wouldn't even give him the time of day, much less 5 seconds of your time, without raising your hand, voice, or anger towards him. That statement alone caused Kushina to slump back into her chair with a dejected expression. He was correct. She wouldn't have believed him. She never did. Not even after everything he had been through. Every time Naruto tried to talk to her, she either ignored him or vented her frustration on him. The thought nearly brought her to tears. Naruto suspected that if the villagers realized how strong he was becoming, they would have been even more terrified and would have attempted to kill him or hurt his loved ones. Therefore, he instructed Asuma to claim credit for the capture and rescue of my twins in order to protect Sakura and himself. Asuma and Lord Sarutobi then informed me to meet at my compound once everything had been resolved well. Let's just focus on the pictures. You'll discover the answers, Fugaku said, turning back to the holoprojector. Please go on. The shinobi, civilians, elders, and daimyo themselves were shocked to learn that Naruto resembled the first Hokage, especially when Hiruzen described him as resembling his sensei, friend, and father figure. They witnessed how those in the video loved and cared for Naruto as if he were their own, and they saw how Naruto explained everything that had happened from the night of the kidnapping to everything that had happened in his life. Tsunade was still in denial that this was Naruto's life. Even the daimyo, his council, and the Guardian 12 were disgusted by the acts of the villagers toward the poor boy. Danzo and Hiyashi received enormous amounts of ki because they knew they were in trouble now that their secrets had been exposed. What hurt the two parents the most was that Naruto had found someone else to fill the roles of parents where his birth parents had failed and neglected to be a part of. So, Hiyashi, this is what you have been doing to the village's orphans and clans. Is it true that your pitiful clan uses kids as practice dummies, ships them to Danzo like broken tools, or leaves them for dead? You even had the gall to steal from the daimyo and other clan jutsus and sell them to other villages and our enemies for your own profit, knowing that this will weaken our forces for an invasion like the one from earlier today, Shikaku said in a low and dangerous voice. He had 2 scars on the right side of his face, which were probably his most noticeable feature. He had dark hair tied up in a spiky ponytail, dark eyes and a goatee, and his ears were pierced. He wore a meshed shirt underneath his flak jacket, a deerskin coat on top of it, and handguards. Most of the people in the room were taken aback by the tone the Nara head had just used. They knew Shikaku hated child abuse, but they also knew that there would be consequences after seeing what Hiyashi, Danzo, and the Hyuga clan had done. Yes, neither of you will be departing without being placed in a body bag if what we're witnessing and hearing is accurate. Shoza, a tall man with long, red hair and purple markings on his cheeks, the latter being a common trait in the Akamichi clan, snarled angrily at the two. He is dressed like a samurai, complete with a black suit with armor that features the symbol for food, shoku, on it, a rope belt, handguards, and, at one point, a pair of silver, hooped earrings. Although Choza detested child abuse, he also felt guilty because he was among those who chose to ignore Naruto when some of his clansmen were beating up the poor boy. Suddenly, the temperature dropped as they turned to see Minato and Kushina unleash a huge amount of Ki directed primarily at Danzo and some at Hiashi. After witnessing my son's life, I can assure you that there will be hell to pay for all the time I failed to be there for him as a father. Kushina's hair almost resembled Kurama's 9 tails as her maternal instincts went into overdrive, and she was now ready to kill the people who had caused her baby so much pain, primarily Danzo and Hiashi. Starting with the two of you, Minato said in a menacing voice, pointing at Danzo and Hiashi. Hiashi, you were meant to be a close friend and member of our family, but now, as they began to choke Hiashi, chakra chains shot out of Kushina and clung to his neck. Now I'll make you suffer just like you made my little Naruto suffer. Die, you fucking bastard. Kushina screamed as she kept applying pressure to Hiashi's neck. Enough. Later, you can murder him. As Kushina began to slowly release his neck, the fire daimyo said, after all, he and every last member of his clan have to pay for their other crimes as well. However, he was forcefully slammed against the table. With a venomous spit, Minato said, consider this a new fact, Hyuga. Whatever friendship and ties we had is over now and forever. He then took out Naruto and Hinata's marriage contract and lit it up, causing it to burn in front of everyone. This marriage contract is null and void as of right now. You and any Hyuga are not allowed to enter the area within 100 feet of the Uzunami clan compound. I will castrate them right there. Additionally, your bitch daughter is not allowed to interact with Natsumi, Menma, or any other member of our clan with murderous eyes, Minato said. Understood. Hiashi lowered his head, unable to face his old friends after receiving the news that he and his clan had betrayed their village and country. Oh, please, this is just a terrible pretext to attract attention for that ungrateful brat. Tsunade was about to say. I bet this is all just some sort of scheme, when Jiraiya, the person she least expected, punched her hard in the face into a wall. Jiraiya. What the hell? For what reason did you punch? Jiraiya was furious about whether or not to strangle Tsunade for making such a false accusation, while Tsunade yelled and glared dangerously at her former teammate as she slowly began to stand again. You know damn well why, Tsunade. He pulled out a scroll, opened it, and threw Naruto's medical report at her face. Read it. Tsunade started crying as she read the report. As Tsunade read through his medical report, she thought, oh Naruto, I'm so sorry, this can't be real, it just can't be, there's no way anyone could survive this. Excuse me, Commander, but is it true that everything that had happened to the boy, and don't get me wrong, but did all this really happen? A guardian inquired. Believe me when I say that everything you see here is the real deal, Steven said, raising an eyebrow. Your village would have faced dangers and conflict if Naruto hadn't been there. He then gave Danzo a deadly glare, and what you saw was nothing but what truly happened in this boy's life. Especially what you are about to see. The pictures depicted how Naruto spied on traitors and spies in their own village and assisted in their capture. However, these were the final pictures of Naruto before he left the village, and Minato and Kushina were horrified to see what they had done. They had both disowned Naruto by blood and rights, and they had nearly killed him on the same day. They even noticed that Naruto had the Shimigami blood seal applied to him, and they realized that they had very little chance of winning Naruto's forgiveness. The prophecy states that a child of 2 powerful shinobis will be visited by a crystal guardian from a cave of crystals. Within the cave, shall he awaken his abilities and hidden powers. He shall be the one who unites the lands and brings peace to the world. Jiraiya was shocked to learn that Naruto had visited the fabled crystal gemstone cave. After this, I hope we find Naruto and bring him home so the prophecy can come true, Jiraiya thought. We messed up big time. Naruto was the child of prophecy and we neglected him. They even witnessed Naruto confess his love for Sakura and Satsuki, explain why he really grew stronger, celebrate with his new family, say goodbye, and destroy Danzo's root base, which Hiruzen, Itachi, Asuma, Fugaku, and Mebuki grinned at as Naruto thwarted Danzo's plans, only to be captured, beaten to a bloody pulp, and subjected to such horrific torture that it would make Orochimaru seem like a saint in contrast. Everyone in the room was terrified of what Naruto was going to do, but their hearts stopped when they saw him hang up the phone, bleed against a pipe over his head, throw up petroleum that was stuffed inside of him, and be completely naked. His vision was gaudy and blurry, and they watched a fat man who looked like a pig unzip his pants and get behind him. As she pleaded, Kushina thought that what she was witnessing was not real. Kami, no, please tell he isn't, please Kami. I beg of you, please don't do this, not to my baby. Minato was unconsciously hyperventilating when he thought, Kami, please tell me this isn't happening, this can't be real, it just can't. Oh Kami, why is this happening to my son? Asuma struggled to believe that it was real and thought, No 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 no, this was not supposed to happen when we sent him on his journey, not like this, anything but this. Itachi prayed, hoping that this was all a genjutsu. No, please not Naruto Kami, haven't you done enough that caused my little brother enough pain? Please I beg you don't do this. I hope Naruto wasn't raped. Hiruzen wanted to turn away, but he silently prayed, dear Kami, please no more, please don't take away my grandson's innocence, please don't. Kami, haven't you done enough to my son? Why do you deceive him like this? Why? Why must he suffer like this? Fugaku thought to himself as he prepared to torture the obese man when he came across him. Torturing him painfully and slowly until he pleaded for death would only make his suffering worse. Oh sweet Kami, no please not, dear sweet little Naruto. Please don't do this. Mebuki sobbed silently as she saw what was about to happen. The man plunged his foul, disgusting dick into Naruto's anus as he began to rape the helpless child while the others began to smack him like a piñata. Naruto screamed in agony and pain as the fat, pig-like man continued to plunge his filthy cock in his anus while the others continued to beat him to a bloody pulp. Kushina started pleading for forgiveness while leaned back in his chair. The majority of the civilian councilmen cheered and laughed at Naruto's misery until Itachi himself beat them to a bloody pulp, while the majority of the shinobi, the 12 guardians, and the daimyo looked down in shame and disgust. Hiruzen appeared to be having a heart attack, and Mebuki was crying even more when she saw the little boy who changed and helped her daughter and family being raped like a ragdoll. Jiraiya lost his lunch and began throwing up, and Tsunade followed suit, and Fugaku turned away. Asuma roared, let me go, I'll kill him. Danzo, how dare you, selfish fucking bastard, when I'm through with you you'll wish you were dead, let me go right now. Then they saw the turtle Anbu and the group of villagers above the statue of Hashirama Senju as he threw Naruto's battered and bloody body off the 50-story high waterfall, falling into the raging water. Naruto, when they turned around, they saw how distraught Kushina looked, paler than before, and unable to stop crying or shaking her baby. Their sweet little Naruto had been robbed of his innocence and now killed by the very people of this village and her own clan, whom she and her husband had protected for years, only to be repaid with abuse, neglect, and the death of their oldest child. Minato went to console his wife, but even he appeared devastated by what he saw. The memory seal was now completely broken, and images flashed before Minato and Kushina's minds as they began to recall everything from the day Naruto was born until now. They recalled how sweet, happy, cute, and innocent he looked as a baby, the adorable little faces and giggles he made while his parents watched over him and played with him and his siblings as a little baby, and how much he had matured as he grew up in the short time he had in the village. Oh, how they wished they could go back in time and make amends. However, they realized it was too late. Kushina sobbed in her husband's chest, Minato, he's dead. Minato, they killed our son. Our Naruto is gone. Minato. The two parents saw their own child die, which is one of the most terrible things that a parent should ever experience. My child, I should have been there for my baby when he needed me. We should have been there for our son Minato to have comforted him when he was alone, suffering, and in pain. I failed to protect him. I failed to be there for him as a mother. Minato, I'm so sorry. Naruto, I'm so sorry. Naruto. Kushina continued to break down in tears as she lamented the loss of her son. Minato sat down next to his wife and consoled her, but he wasn't doing any better. Just how bad of a father could he have been to Naruto? He realized that he had made so many mistakes in the 6 years of his son's life, and now that Naruto had paid for them with his own life, he realized that he was the real cause of his son's death. Had he and his wife known this was the price they would pay for their mistake of making Naruto the village scapegoat, they would never have agreed to make Naruto the village punching bag in the first place. They had abandoned Naruto for all those years, and now they have paid the ultimate price for their ignorance. And Uzumaki never abandons blood, no matter what the reason may be or who they are or if they are strong or weak. They would stand by one another and together they would face any task until the end as a family and as a clan. That's right, those very words were still ringing in his ears as the clan heads of their joint clan. He and his wife were supposed to ensure that the laws of the clan were followed and respected by their clansmen, especially the most sacred of the clan laws. However, because they disregarded that one law, they lost their son. As more tears streamed down his cheeks, Minato thought to himself, I don't deserve the title of Hokage. I don't deserve to be called a clan head. I don't deserve to call myself a father when I couldn't even protect my own son. I'm so sorry, Naruto. I truly don't deserve to have a son like you. We threw you away because of my mistakes in the past. We have now lost you forever. Everyone except Mebuki and Danzo gazed at the two young parents sympathetically. After all, what could be more devastating than losing your own child? Those who were truly close to Naruto were just as devastated, if not more so, than Naruto's parents, who treated him like trash and a bother, but they still had the right to mourn his death and hope that he would forgive them in the afterlife for what they did to him while he was still alive. Their memories and moments with the little blonde will last a lifetime, but they were also grieving for the loss of their beloved adopted son, godson, brother, grandson, nephew, future son-in-law, and friend. Pure uncontrollable rage was building inside as they were about to make those who mistreated Naruto pay dearly with their lives. The temperature in the room dropped as massive amounts of Ki were being released from Hiruzen, Asuma, Fugaku, Mebuyuki, Enma, Itachi, Minato, and Kushina, primarily Minato and Kushina. The red-haired woman, whose hair resembled Kurama's 9 tails, was now standing in front of the man who had killed her son. Her teary eyes were replaced with the eyes of a raging inferno. The Anbu was terrified when he saw the Hokage and his wife, the red hot-blooded Habareno. You killed my baby. You fucking murdered my little Naruto. I'll kill you for what you did to my son. Kushina screamed as she attacked and began beating the living hell out of the Anbu until he was a bloody mess. Then she wrapped him around in her chakra chains, crushing every bone and internal organ in his body. It didn't stop there. Minato also gave him a beating. Him with a Rasengan, splattered the walls, floors, and ceilings, splattered the dead Anbu's corpse on the floor. No one dared to move in retaliation for what they saw. Be ready because you two are up next. Hiyashi and Danzo felt a chill go down their spines when Minato said, and believe me, I will show no mercy to the likes of you like I did to this Anbu. They were aware of how dangerous Minato could be when he was furious and that almost nothing could stop him from defending his family and home. Pardon my intrusion, but that's what happened to Naruto when he left the village for 3 days, Steven said in an attempt to start a conversation. Minato gave him a confused and angry look. There's still something you haven't seen yet. What are you saying? Minato insisted. For this one, you might want to take a seat. Steven said, please sit down, everyone, and I'll show you what I mean. Everyone went back to their seats, with the exception of Danzo, who was still paralyzed from the ray that had been fired at him earlier. You see, at first we knew nothing of this dimension until we encountered Naruto during one of our mission. We had discovered that one of the TDMMs had escaped into this dimension and Wes was sent to apprehend the convict before any damage was done to this world. After successfully completing his mission, Wes found Naruto at the edge of the waterfall a few minutes after, and the poor boy was in terrible condition. When Wes found him, he was on the verge of death, Steven said as he displayed the video of Wes' encounter that caught everyone's attention after defeating and apprehending the escaped TDMM. They depicted Wes approaching a dying Naruto. Wes thought it was a good idea to bring him back with him in order to save him. It took almost a week to completely heal him and remove both the petroleum and poison that had been destroying his internal organs out of his system completely, but despite every attempt that nearly killed him, we were still able to successfully pull through and had been able to have saved his life. Steven stated that this gave both Minato and Kushina hope their son was still alive. He was able to avoid death thanks to these individuals. Kushina sobbed, desperate to find out if her son was still alive. Are you saying my baby's still alive? Please tell me. I need to know how my little boy is. I need to see him. A 6'1" man with fair skin, brown eyes, blonde hair, and a black shirt, blue pants, red jacket, and black boots appeared in a flash of white light just as Steven was about to continue. Everyone, with the exception of the daimyo, the civilian council, Danzo, due to his ongoing paralysis, the rangers, Steven, and his men, assumed their fighting positions in anticipation of whether the intruder would be hostile or a treat. Before Katie slapped him on the head, the blonde said, easy everyone, if this is the welcoming committee, I'd say you guys really need to work on it because it looks like you'd scare lil kids away. How many times do I have to get it through your thick skull when I said don't fucking do that, y'all, moron? Katie began to scream. The man merely pouted and rubbed his aching spot. Ah come sis, you know I do that just to get here with a message to y'all, and here I thought you forget about your big brother after my 3-year mission. Besides, it's always fun to see someone getting jumped out of their pants once in a while. Hey Uncle Steve, how y'all been? The stranger replied with a goofy grin on his cheek. Steven simply let out a frustrated sigh. Fantastic. My erratic neck pain nephew has arrived to cause an even more excruciating headache. Steven rubbed his forehead and temples, thinking, just great. When Steven said, everyone meet one of Time Dimension's most brilliant and also my unpredictable pain in the neck who's somedays going to give a heart attack, nephew Thomas Joshua Knight. Thomas pouted once more, and the others appeared shocked when he uttered the word, nephew. Ah come on guys, I'm not that bad. Sure, I may have accidentally blown up a couple, okay, maybe more than a couple of labs, floors and training areas, but can you blame me when I'm trying to make progress on my work? And yes, they have been beneficial to Time Dimension, thank you very much, but maybe I should have pulled back just a little on the pranks though. Thomas was trembling in his seat. Everyone began to perspire. Was this man real? Grabbing him by the collar, Katie began to shake him like a rag doll. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Katie screamed at him, Just a little, your pranks and experiments almost always end in disaster. Do you know how many times you nearly blew yourself up when doing your research, and do you know that I have clearly lost track how many hospital visits I had to make just to make sure your sorry ass is still in one piece? Do you? Katie asked him. You're the only family I have left, Tommy. Ever since Mom and Dad died when we were little kids, you always took care of me and always tried to cheer whenever I'm feeling down or depressed. You're always there when I need you, big bro. Every time when I hear got sent to the hospital, I always feared that I'll lose my last remaining family. So that's I always worry about you, Tommy. I can't lose you like Mom and Dad. I just can't. Katie wept inside her older brother's chest. Tommy's eyes were as wide as they could be as he gazed down at his sister, who was crying. He was unaware of his sister's genuine concern for him. Finally, all those years of suppressed feelings were coming out. Her teammates were equally taken aback by Katie's behavior toward Tommy. Her brother's presence usually irritated or annoyed her, but when she met Naruto, that must have changed. Thomas simply grinned and gave his younger sister a head pat. Katie, look at me. I know I may mess things up and occasionally try to get myself blown up, but one thing is certain is that I will never, and I mean I will never, leave my baby sister. I promise you that you won't lose me because I promised Mom and Dad that I'll always be there for you. Tommy kissed the top of her forehead after gently cupping her cheeks and wiping away her tears on the cheeks. When her brother's silly smile came back, Katie wiped away her tears and grinned. Besides, I can't die just yet. Monica would probably go back in time and kill me herself if I died on her, and you haven't given me the chance to meet my adorable niece and nephew yet. Tommy made fun of his younger sister. Katie went to beat the shit out of her brother once more, her face flushed from embarrassment and rage. This is what Tommy always does to her. He constantly makes fun of her for having to meet his adorable little nephew and niece. Steven made the decision to end it before Katie ruins the room, as she always does when Tommy makes fun of her attempts to clobber him. With an evil grin that said, "Payback's a bitch," Steven said, "Alright you two, that's enough. Katie, you can kill Tommy later." "Yes? What? Don't, what, me, mister? Consider this payback for what you did my car." Thomas looked scared as his sister cracked her knuckles, smiled evilly, and exuded a menacing aura. He might as well begin completing his mission since he knew he was dead. Taking out a black block the size of a sugar cube, he placed it on the table and said, "Oh, okay Katie B, before you do something you regret, let me show you why I'm here." The block then expanded into a sizable briefcase when he took out a remote control and pressed the red button. When he opened it, a glowing, multicolored sphere the size of a tiny soccer ball came out. Steven couldn't say anything. The sphere of the void was in Thomas's hand. Steven looked at the sphere in his nephew's hand and asked, "Tommy, is that what I think it is?" Tommy merely gave a nod. The captains and rangers were taken aback and stunned when Uncle Steve said, "That's right, Uncle Steve, it's the unbreakable and most precious gem of the void dimension, the sphere of the void. One of the 9 most potent artifacts in the whole dimensional rift was the sphere of the void." The silence was broken first by Katie. Tommy interrupted her when she asked, "Tommy, how did you?" Tommy pointed to Minato and Kushina and explained, "Because the Guardians of the Void gave me permission to bring the sphere here for them to see their son's life before the cataclysm." He glared dangerously at Danzo, who began to perspire a little, saying, "Plus this was their way of saying thank you for what Naruto had done, and I'm the only one who was given the power to wield and activate the sphere should anyone try to take it from me without permission or by stealing from me." In a voice that said, "I'm not fucking around. Unless you really want to die, then fucking take it seriously," he stated, "will have their souls pulled from their bodies and be lost into the void for the rest of eternity, unable to return to their own bodies or any other bodies, while their bodies will start to decay within minutes, leaving behind a pile of rotting bones before turning to dust." When he said that, everyone practically turned pale. Katie was aware that her brother never made light of life-threatening issues or circumstances, and that he took the lives of others and those he cared about seriously, particularly the current state of affairs. Since everyone was obviously perplexed, one of the 12 guardians made the decision to inquire as to what was happening. Steven glanced at everyone and saw that the man was correct. "Excuse me for intruding, Commander, but could you please tell us what is going on, and what is that strange-looking orb?" These individuals had no idea what was happening at the moment or what powers were present in this sphere. He nodded as he glanced at Tommy. Tommy held the sphere high in the air and said, "All right then. Please listen, what I'm about to tell may render you speechless. The orb in my hand is called the Sphere of the Void. It is one of the 9 most powerful artifacts known throughout time and the entire dimensional rift, and it will not be wielded by anyone unless the Guardians of the Void Dimension, who are also the protectors of the sphere and the void itself, and I hope you took my warning seriously, otherwise this is what will happen." With haste, the captains and rangers drew their blasters and pointed them at him. As he prepared to blow the Anbu's head off, Trip ordered, "Hand over the sphere and we'll consider letting you live." The Anbu sneered and simply stared at them. "Never, a weapon like this will make this village stronger and feared by our enemies. No one will ever harm our village, and with this at our disposal I'll make sure of it." He was glaring at them. With no emotion on his face, Tommy asked, "Are you sure about that? Because I was expecting something a little more than this, especially after a madman's way of training idiots like you into believing they're nothing but weapons to kill people without a conscience, or maybe he's just nothing but a paranoid jackass that likes to hear people scream and taste the blood of others while waging war on those who are helpless and couldn't protect themselves like weak-minded old warhawk that he is." Tommy finished his glare before sending a second to Danzo. When the Leaf and Daimyo's council recognized Tommy, they gave Danzo their own scowls. Tommy used his arm to block the blank Anbu's short sword charge as the Anbu attacked her brother. Katie cried out, "Tommy!" He had only said, "Don't you dare disrespect Lord Danzo?" If he was Hokage, this entire village, hell, this entire nation would be feared by all, cough cough, before dropping the sphere and beginning to cough up blood. As he continued to cough up more and more blood, his mask came off. As it started to get worse, a tiny black hole the size of a wrist materialized in front of his face and sucked his soul out. He had both hands around his throat because he felt like his entire being was on fire. In an attempt to resist it, the blank Anbu's soul was drawn out of his veins, causing his body to deteriorate. The root Anbu was crying in excruciating pain and agony as his skin started to peel off, exposing his organs, and his body was being burned from the inside out. His internal organs began to pop like balloons as guts and pieces of organs splattered across the room, and when all that was left were the bones, they too crumbled before being turned ashes before another black hole the same size as the one that had previously sucked in the remains of the Anbu was gone. The blood and any liquidized substance of the human body became as dry as the desert sand after seeing the horrifyingly gory scene. Some of the councilmen were looking green and clutching their mouths and stomachs to keep from losing their lunch, while the majority were either fainting or throwing up at the scene. Tommy picked it up and used his handkerchief to clean it. He sighed as he glanced at them. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens to anyone who has tried and successfully failed to retrieve the sphere for their selfish needs and desires. The sphere channels a strange and unknown power that reads the individual, and it finds you unworthy of its power or being held by it will let you or the guardians know, but if choose not to listen or heed the warnings, then you just the results of the consequences, Tommy said after he had cleaned the sphere and set it on the table. After learning of the Anbu's fate, Katie abruptly stopped thinking and went to see how Tommy's arm was doing. Ignoring her brother's question, she pulled up his long red-sleeved jacket to reveal a thin, metal-like gauntlet around his arm. "Katie, what are you doing?" she asked. She looked up to her brother, who was grinning silly as usual. "You didn't really think that I'd come here unprepared, did you? Beside, the guardians notified me that this may happen, so I come prepared," Katie replied with a grin. "Good, because I was afraid you were bleeding or injured." Tommy fell to the ground, face down. With a big wham, she reprimanded him like a mother to her son, saying angrily, "Don't ever scare me or do something stupid like that ever again, or I'll really show you what an injury feels like." At this, everyone started to perspire. Some wondered if she had a 180 personality, while others wondered if she was bipolar or something. Tommy stood up slowly, shook his head slightly, and then slapped his sister on the back of the head while glaring at her. She rubbed her aching head and said, "Hey, what was that for?" Katie pouted when Tommy resorted to saying, "Now you know how I feel when you whack me on the head. Only because you keep trying to get yourself injured or killed most of the time." Tommy was just sighing. For someone her age, Katie can occasionally be a little immature. He got a murderous glare from Katie when she said, "We'll talk about that later, along with how much of a childish act you constantly put on." With the artifact raised high in his hand for everyone to see, Tommy said, "That we'll discuss later. For now, there's something else I need show you." Everyone in the room, including the hidden Anbu, was blinded by the multicolored light emanating from the sphere alone. "I'll be using honorifics from now on. Additionally, when you're in the voice, it will sound normal to you, but to those who came with you, it will sound different." When Minato opened his eyes, he discovered that he was floating in a pitch black, limitless emptiness rather than the Hokage Tower. "What the hell? What is this place, and where am I?" As he glanced around and noticed Kushina floating a few feet away, he thought, "It's a little dreadful and gloomy for my taste." Minato hurried to his wife's side and asked, "Kushina-chan, are you all right?" Kushina opened her eyes, nodded, and turned to face her husband. Kushina looked around the endless darkness and said, "I'm fine, Minato-kun, but where are we? The last I remember was that Tommy guy holding up that sphere and a blinding light, and the next thing I know I'm here in this weird-looking place." The couple was taken aback when a deep, enigmatic voice said, "I see that you have made it shinobi of the elemental world." As she and Minato assumed their fighting positions, Kushina yelled, "Hey, who's there? Show yourself, Tebane." The strange chuckled a little. Out of the shadows, a figure said, "Calm down, kids. There's no need to worry, I mean no harm." He had green eyes with white pupils, a muscular build, a long white triangular beard and mustache, and greenish-blue skin. He was 7 feet tall. He wore brown shoes, a long staff with a rectangular diamond-shaped crystal in the top and center of the staff, and a brown robe-like cloak with a haughty and an odd alien symbol that read, Guardian. On the back. When Minato and Kushina saw the 7-foot guardian, they were taken aback. Greetings, young ones. My name Guardian Bilotrax, and I am one of the 7 guardians of the sphere of the void and of the void dimension. It is a pleasure to meet you, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Bilotrax said to both of them when he introduced himself. Minato and Kushina relaxed a little, but they were taken aback by how well he knew them. Wait, how do you know who we are, Guardian sir? And where are the rest of the people that came along with us? Minato asked him. Bilotrax merely grinned. Bilotrax threw his staff into the air, and a beam of light flashed from it, revealing not the daimyo himself or the rest of the members and his men from the tower, but the rangers, Stephen, Tommy, the captains, the elders, shinobi, civilian councilmen, Enma, and a few others as well. I've known of both you and of your wife for quite some time now, young one, and it is not as the stalker type as you young ones would put it. Also thrown into the void were Sakura, Sasuke, Satsuki, Makoto, Shisui, Kazashi, Konohamaru, Masuko, Ayame, Tuchi, Kakashi, Menma, and Natsumi. Fugaku said, holding onto his head as though someone was pounding on it like a drum. Hey, is everyone alright? Damn it, my head feels like someone played it like a drum. Sakura recovered first. Sakura ran up to her mother and gave her a big hug while shedding a few tears, calling out, Ka-chan. Sakura buried her face deeper into her mother's stomach and sobbed, I thought I'd never see you again. When Kazashi noticed that his wife and daughter were back together, he gave them hugs. Mebuki wiped the tears from her young daughter's face and kissed the top of Sakura's head, saying, Shush, it's okay Sakura-chan, I'm alright. Ka-chan's alright sweetheart, there my little cherry blossom, it's alright now. A blur of red and yellow caught Minato and Kushina's attention and tackled them to the ground. Menma tackled Minato, and Natsumi tackled Kushina while Menma nodded in agreement. Natsumi said with a worried expression, To-san. Ka-san, are we glad to see you? We thought something terrible must have happened to you, and Menma and I were worried about you. Yeah, we thought after the fight we won't be able to see you again. Menma continued. On the outside, Minato and Kushina appeared unconcerned, but on the inside, they were frantically considering what to do to the 2 rotten brats they called their children. For the time being, though, they would handle the situation as real parents would, as the 2 parents attempted to soothe their children. When Jiraiya and Tsunade noticed that Minato and Kushina were staring at Natsumi and Menma, they hoped that they wouldn't say or do anything about Naruto because they didn't know what the 2S rank and SS rank shinobi and Kunoichi would do to them. Then Fugaku looked around and saw that everyone was beside him, including his wife and all of the children as Itachi, Asuma, and Hiruzen checked on the other people who had accompanied them. Fugaku asked Makoto, who was just regaining consciousness, Makoto, what are you and the kids doing here? And where is here anyway? She looked at her husband after blinking a few times. Makoto yelled, Fugaku-kun, what? Where are we? The last thing I remember was getting all the kids back to the clan compound after we finished providing some medical attention to the wounded when a strange light brought us here. Fugaku-kun, what the heck is that? Pointing to Bilotrax, who merely grinned in response. The Guardians of the Void have become accustomed to this tense situation over the millennia. Tommy turned and glared menacingly, muttering small curses to keep the children from hearing. Ha ha ha, it's okay. Young one, I've had a few people react the same way you did, except for Tommy here, who amusingly fainted when he first saw me. He yelled, Hey, you said you wouldn't tell anyone, jackass. As the others giggled and chuckled, Katie fell onto her back and clutched her stomach, unable to stop laughing as she imagined her brother passing out after meeting Bilotrax. Then he let out a sigh. They would eventually find out, though he turned to Bilotrax and regarded him suspiciously. Anyway, I brought everyone here just like you asked, Bilotrax, so which one are you going to show them first? The real reason why they're here for their history lesson? Everyone was completely perplexed by his words. Actual justification or historical lesson? What did he mean exactly by that? Sakura made the decision to speak up. Tommy completely forgot about that and started explaining everything from the introduction to the part about the void. Excuse me, but could you please tell us who are you, where we are, and what are you talking about? Cause some of us here didn't get the memo of being brought from our homes to this void-like place. Tommy turned to face Guardian Bilotrax, hoping he could clarify the situation. And as to why you're all here is completely Guardian Bilotrax's idea, so we're going to tell them why they're here. He asked. Bilotrax merely gave a nod. As his staff glowed and flashed a dazzling white light, Bilotrax said, Very well, now that I have your attention, we may begin. Before you see, the reason I brought you here is to show the real reason why the cataclysmic apocalypse happened and who brought an end to it. Let me show you the history of your world. Hundreds of men in samurai armor were fighting for territory and other things when the light went out. A huge tree that reached the sky above stood in the center of everything. Its height and diameter were estimated to be 7,000 meters and 2,500 meters, respectively. This tree was called the Shinju, or the God Tree. Give or take, because I don't know the actual height or diameter of this thing. The majestic size of the enormous tree and the fact that they could sense enormous amounts of chakra within it left the shinobi, kunoichi, children, daimyo, guardian 12, and civilians in a state of confusion. The others nodded in agreement as Satsuki uttered, "Dear Kami, what is that thing? I could feel huge amounts of chakra coming from that tree. What exactly was this odd tree, and why was it releasing so much energy?" The sphere will be narrating the history of the shinobi world. That tree, young Satsuki, is called the Shinju tree. A massive tree that reaches up to the heavens and is considered a god tree. This tree bears a forbidden fruit that blooms once every millennium. No one is allowed to eat the forbidden fruit because the fruit was only considered for the gods. This, young ones, is where your history began. Then, as everyone else stood on what seemed to be an invisible surface of smooth grass and sand, a loud, booming voice spoke from it as it floated into the air. Over a millennium ago in your world, war had nearly consumed the lands, and the sight of dead flesh and dried blood was painted on the surface of every land that spread from the far east to the scorching west. Hardship, pain, suffering, starvation, destruction, sacrifice, and power-hungry men ran amok as more and more lives had their blood spilled and homes were destroyed. Until one day a princess from a faraway land named Kagaya Otsutsuki decided that she had enough of mankind and their obsession with war and power. Kagaya was a woman with extremely long, sweeping white hair that touched the ground, pale skin, and delicate facial features. She had a dark shade of nail polish on her long fingernails and a dark shade of lipstick on her lips. Her two brown horns, which protruded from her head and were inherited by both of her sons, were the most noticeable feature. She wore a transitional high-collared hime kimono with intricate gold and purple lines and tomo running down the center and edges of the gown, and her eyebrows were cut very short, a sign of nobility. In addition to having the byakugan, Kagaya had a third eye with vertically parted eyelids in the middle of her forehead. As Natsumi gazed at the foreign princess's beauty, she questioned, "Whoa, is she really a princess? She's beautiful, but what's with those horns on her head and that eye-like thing on her forehead? Is she an alien or something? And why does it look like she had the byakugan?" Bilotrax shocked everyone by saying, "Yes, she is indeed a princess. And she was the first to use the byakugan and Rinnegan at the same time. As for the horns, I'm not too sure myself. Thus, this is the founder of the byakugan and our ancestor. Perhaps it won't be a complete loss after all," Hiyashi thought. "If I can learn from this, I can unlock some of the more hidden abilities and our Hyuga takeover can begin." He was not aware that Bilotrax and the sphere had telepathically heard his plans. With the exception of Hiyashi, Danzo, Menma, and Natsumi, Bilotrax surreptitiously used telekinesis to reveal the Hyuga's plans. Everyone had privately thanked him for the information that had been provided to them, saying, "Be wary of the Pale Eye One because I sense danger coming from him." She decided that was going to end all these pointless wars and to bring about peace to the lands. Kagaya went up to the Shinju and ate its forbidden fruit. The power she was given when she ate the forbidden fruit were that of a god. She was the first ever being to utilize the powers of chakra, and with her newfound powers she ended the wars and brought out about peace throughout the lands. Everywhere she went she was renounced as the rabbit goddess due to the two horns on her head. Kagaya later gave birth to two sons, twins to be exact. The first boy was named Hagoromo and the youngest was named Hamura. The boys had inherited their mother's power of chakra and visual prowess, or dojutsu as you call it, of their own. Hagoromo inherited the Rinnegan while his brother inherited the byakugan. Tall and fair-skinned, Hagoromo had shoulder-length, pale red hair that was spiky and hung in a chin-length braid in front of his left ear. In addition, he had a short goatee. Hagoromo had Rinnegan eyes, no eyebrows, and two horn-like protrusions on either side of his forehead. In the middle of his forehead was a red Rinnegan marking as well. Hagoromo wore a full-length white kimono with a 6 black magatama pattern around a high collar. A necklace made of 6 black magatama was worn underneath the kimono. 9 magatama were arranged in 3 rows of 3 beneath a larger black Rinnegan marking on the back of his kimono. Hamura, his brother, had waist-length white hair, hairless brow ridges, and a tall, pale complexion. His chin-length lock of bangs hung from the right side of his face, while his short bangs hung to the left. In addition, he inherited the famous byakugan in each of his eyes and tiny horn-like protuberances on his forehead from his mother. He was dressed in dark pants and a light, full-length kimono with a high collar and a pattern of 6 black magatama. His left hip was strapped with his sword in its sheath in his left palm. He also had a dark crescent moon, which is a symbol of yin. Over time the powers of the Shinju clouded Kaguya's mind. This had grown despotic and developed both a god complex and messiah complex, believing that chakra rightfully belonged to her alone and that only she could protect and unite the world. Despite her initial desire for peace, Kaguya caved into corruption from her power and lost faith in humanity's ability to do what is right, and opted to use her great and terrible power to submit everyone to her will. This led her to madness as she tried to create her ideal of peace by trapping her victims in her infinite moon reader illusion or infinite Tsukuyomi and converting them into an artificial being known as White Zetsu, which changed her public image from that of a benevolent goddess into that of a demon. In a fit of envy that her own sons had inherited her chakra, Kaguya combined herself with the Shinju itself and turned against them in the form of a powerful yet enormous tailed beast. The monstrous 10 tails was the first ever tailed beast. Biju, the size and power was far greater than all the current 9-tailed beasts combined. Seeing as there was no reasoning with their mother, the two brothers were forced to engage their mother in sheer combat. Their intense battle ended with Hagoromo and Hamura separating and absorbing their mother's powerful chakra and sealing it into Hagoromo, making him the first of the power of human sacrifice, or Jinchuriki as you would call them, while sealing her body to form the core of a celestial body that would become known as the moon. The two brothers freed every human being from their cocoons before it was too late. Hagoromo was viewed as a god and a savior of the world, but to you he is best known as the father of all shinobis and the founder of ninjutsu. He was Therakudo Senninor, the sage of the 6 paths. They were all stunned. Hagoromo had just prevented his own mother, who desired peace but had been deceived and corrupted by her abilities, from destroying the entire world. So it's true then, the legendary sage of the 6 paths really did exist. We had witnessed the most epic battle in history and the truth behind the sage of the 6 paths' origin. Sasuke replied with reverence and awe. Nobody would have imagined the sage of the 6 paths was so strong and magnificent, and they had just seen it for themselves. Bilotrax responded to the young Uchiha heir with satisfaction, saying, "Indeed, young Sasuke, this is how you of the elemental world have learned to gain the truth behind your powers and what history has forgotten." With the monstrous core that was used to create the moon, Hamura later departed along with the rest of the Otsutsuki clan to the moon to guard his mother's remains, while Hagoromo stayed on Earth in order to spread chakra to humanity and teach them the concept of ninshu. The birth of ninjutsu. Hagoromo would succeed where his mother had failed after what had happened due to her mislead and clouded judgment. Over time Hagoromo had came to have a family of his own with 2 sons. The oldest son was named Indra and the youngest son was named Asura. Indra's long brown hair was chopped off at the top. His face was framed on either side by 2 bandaged locks. His eyes were surrounded by blue markings that were turned up at the corners, and his eyebrows were cropped short, signifying his nobility. He was dressed in a light-colored, high-collared kimono that was secured with a dark sash. The kimono's collar was embellished with magatama. Beneath it was a black full-bodied suit. In contrast, his brother Asura had short, spiky brown hair, with 2 locks wrapped in bandages that framed his face similarly on either side. He had harsh features on his face. Later, he covered his forehead with bandages and what appeared to be a blank forehead protector. He had magatama embroidered around the collar of his light-colored kimono. A dark-colored sash held the kimono shut. He had on a full-body black suit underneath. Indra was recognized as a prodigy, even by his legendary father. Indra had inherited his father's eyes, his powerful chakra, dojutsu, and spiritual energy. From birth, Indra had a great aptitude for battle. In battle, he also wielded a sword, showing expertise in kenjutsu or sword style. Indra possessed a derived form of his grandmother's dojutsu, the Sharingan. Thus, he could observe the flow of chakra, pay great attention to detail, and accurately predict a person's movements. As a yin release user, he could presumably use his Sharingan for genjutsu or illusions. In time, he also awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. With it, he unlocked the ability to use Susanoo. Owing to his talent, his mastery over the technique was such that he could use complete body Susanoo, which dwarfed the surrounding landscape. He would use it to combat Asura's own battle avatar. As a late bloomer, Asura was born with no talent and thus was originally considered to be unskilled and could not accomplish much on his own. Instead, he valued depending on and cooperating with others. Asura adored Indra and would constantly devote himself to studying, aiming to be like his older brother. With the help of his countless friends and allies, and through sheer hard work and determination, he awakened his own power. As he never lost sight of his principles and the love he had for others, he believed love to be the key to peace. Over the years, however, through grueling hard work and dedication, Asura eventually awakened his own inherited power. His father's body, a powerful life force and physical energy, granting him power on par with his genius older brother, Indra. He was also a capable leader, obtaining countless loyal followers. As years went by, Hagoromo started to grow weak. As such, he feared the Ten Tails would return and run and cause rampage throughout the lands again. Hagoromo separated the Ten Tails chakra within his body and used his creation of all things technique to divide it into 9 separated bodies, creating the tailed beasts and giving each of them a name. Shukaku Theon tailed raccoon dog, Matabi the 2-tailed monster cat, Isobu the 3-tailed giant turtle, Son Goku the 4-tailed king of the sage monkeys, Kakuo the 5-tailed dolphin horse, Seiken the 6-tailed slug, Chomei the 7-tailed horn beetle, Gyuki the 8-tailed giant ox, and Kurama the 9-tailed demon fox. Sakura and Satsuki squealed with delight at the adorableness of the newly created tailed beasts, especially the fluffy-looking Kurama. Kawaii, oh my god, they're so cute. I can't even imagine how something too powerful can be this adorable. Satsuki nodded in agreement with Sakura as she pouted, unable to cuddle Kurama like the cute, fluffy fox he was despite his size. Man, Naruto-kun gets to have Kurama all to himself. I mean, look at how soft and adorable little eyes. It's not fair. At this, everyone started to perspire. These two girls are only interested in being cute, and these were enormous chakra-based entities. Girls, you do realize that these are tailed beasts and that they created from a much larger, more monstrous version, right? Itachi replied. Yeah, but Aniki, big brother, you can't deny how cute they look, especially Kurama. Oh, why couldn't we be able to snuggle with that cute, fluffy ball of fur? Satsuki sighed. Sasuke was staring at Sakura and Satsuki as though they were having a problem, but since he wasn't a girl, he couldn't tell what those two or any other girl was thinking. All Itachi did was cough. Please continue. As a result of extracting them all at once, Hagoromo was left weakened and incapacitated for several months, though the powerful life force of the Ten Tails husk kept him alive. Sometime after their creation, the young tailed beasts were told that they were all still linked to one another despite being separate entities. Hagoromo also told them that they would eventually become one again, yet not as they originally were, and that one shall appear at that time to show them what true power is. Hagoromo eventually sealed the husk of the Ten Tails within the moon and merged it with the core of the Ten Tails so no one could ever find or use it ever again. On his deathbed, Hagoromo had called forth his sons, so passed down as his successor, and would continue his legacy as the protector and teacher of Ninshu. Indra the prodigy, who never had to depend on others, had come to thought that strength and power was the key to peace, while Asura, who has always been dependent on others and has shown great leadership and love, had come to thought that love and compassion was the key to peace. Hagoromo had been moved by Asura's philosophy that love was indeed the key that will lead to eternal peace, and so he had selected Asura as his successor to carry out his dream of peace and understanding in the world. However, Indra did not take the news too well, had stormed out of the room in a fit of rage. That is where he met Black Zetsu, a manipulated artificial being of Kaguya's will, had manipulated Indra into believing that he should have been chosen instead as it was his birthright, was manipulated into fighting Asura. Both brothers died fighting over the title of the successor of Ninshu, but not before having offspring who would continue this feud for centuries to come. Indra's eventual descendants were known as the Uchiha clan would feud with Asura's eventual descendants would be known as the Senju clan. Neither clan knew why nor how their hatred of the other came to be. Suspecting that Indra or one of his reincarnations would eventually attempt to take Asura's power for themselves, Hagoromo left behind a tablet detailing his history in an attempt to make them reconsider. Only those who possess the Rinnegan can fully decipher the contents of the tablet, while a reader with other dojutsu such as the Sharingan can still partially interpret the information. However, unknown to him, Black Zetsu had altered the contents of his tablet so he could manipulate Indra's descendants, the Uchiha clan, through the ages into resurrecting Kaguya and initiating the infinite Tsukuyomi anew. Even though Hagoromo died and his body was destroyed, his chakra and consciousness remained and traversed the world throughout the centuries, and from that the war between the Uchihas and Senjus had begun. To the surprise of everyone in attendance, Satsuki said, "So that's how the Uchihas and Senjus have come to hate each other and why the feud had even begun in the first place. It was because Indra was jealous that his younger brother Asura had become their father's successor, and cause of the influence from that Black Zetsu thing which began the Uchiha clan's curse of hatred and quest for power." This statement left most of the adults in shock. How did she find out about the curse of hatred of the Uchiha clan? Even though very few Uchiha clansmen still believe in it, Fugaku, Itachi, Makoto, and Shisui wanted the younger generation to have nothing to do with it and are working to permanently eradicate it from their clan, and because of Naruto's influence over them in the Uchiha clan, this action was primarily necessary. The Uchiha adults were staring at Satsuki as if she had grown a second head. With her arms folded across her chest and a cute pout, Satsuki remarked, "What? I read a lot in my free time, especially about the good and bad history of the clans in the village, so I can be prepared for anything which may include political backlash, or for general knowledge you guys make it look like a bad thing. Itachi laughed at the antics of his Imouto, her little sister, and ruffled her hair, making her pout even more, leave it to Satsuki to attempt to use her knowledge to make things more cheerful, only to end up sulking like a young child. Does this mean that the writing on the stone tablet that I saw with my Mangekyo in the Naka shrine was all a lie? That everything we had worked and fought for as a clan was all some elaborate scheme to free Kaguya from her prison? And all of this Uchiha curse of hatred was just an excuse cause of some petty jealousy? Can't believe this fucked up shit. Man, I think my head's going to explode. Shisui said with a sigh as he began his locks to silence him. Masuko gave him a slap on the head. Itachi said, not everything was a lie, Shisui, and you know it. Maybe it's true that the clan wars between Senju and Uchiha were caused by petty jealousy and manipulation, but look at our clans now. There are no more wars and bloodsheds between us, and we are living harmoniously with them and are working together to protect the future and peace of the village. But now that we know the truth of our clan's heritage and what dark secrets had been hidden from us, we can now prepare for the future in hopes that no one ever makes the same mistake as our ancestors did and that they never happen again. This statement really made a big impression on almost everyone, possibly even leading some to speculate that Itachi might be a candidate for the Hokage. You're right, Itachi, why should we dwell in the past when we have a bright future ahead of us? I guess it infuriated me when I found out that our clans were part of some scandal due to a past jealousy and manipulative jackass, but we'll make sure that never happens ever again, Shisui said as he was getting himself back together. Makoto began to release some ki when she looked directly at him with a very sweet smile that almost made Shisui jump out of his skin. Well, at least now settled, we can get back to the matter at hand. Oh, and Shisui. Why? Yes, am I. Makoto Oba-san, Auntie. Shisui was devastated to see her in that state, as it brought back memories of the moniker she had acquired during the Third Shinobi War. The grinning raven Shisui learned the hard way that no one can avoid her wrath, so if she's grinning, you can expect mercy from her. If not, pray she doesn't find you. Please refrain from vulgar languages in front of the kids, for I don't disciple you like I did when you were still little. Now die? Makoto said with a gentle tone. When she said that, Shisui went pale. Compared to the missions he completed during his shinobi career, the horror of being Makoto's disciple had left him with nightmares that kept him up for 2 months. He was never the same again. With a high, squeaky voice, he said, I promise. Then he hid behind Itachi, who was laughing at Shisui's small display, but even he knew that he would never betray his mother because he was present when she was disciplining Shisui. Itachi continued to suppress the emotion of witnessing that terrible scene that day. Satsuki was whispered to by Sasuke. Satsuki nodded in agreement with her brother. Man, Ka-chan sure can be scary when she wants to be. However, both of them stiffened when they slowly turned to see their mother grinning at them from behind, just as she had done with Shisui in terror. The Uchiha twins gave each other hugs. Makoto said in the same lovely voice, Sasu-chan. Tasuki-chan, is there something you would like to say to me? They all said, no, Ka-chan, before ducking behind Masuko, who was laughing at the three Uchiha's antics. Let us continue. After a few centuries, some of the Senju clan members split from the clan, stating that they want nothing to do with this ridiculous feud that has been endangering the younger, but will aid the Senjus should they need any assistance. It was a painful decision, but the Senjus agreed with them. They left the Senju clan and established a new home and clan on an island in the land of the raging whirlpools, land of eddies, of the coast of the land of fire near the land of waves, called themselves the Uzumaki clan. The clan was named after the raging whirlpools that protect them from invaders and for their red hair, longevity and sealing prowess. The symbol that represents the clan is of a light bluish spiral that looks like a whirlpool. Even though the Uzumaki separated themselves from the Senjus, their relationship with them never faltered. As the feud continued for a millennia, until two young boys of opposite clans had met for the first time, unaware of the destiny that they hold together. Hashirama of the Senju clan and Madara of the Uchiha clan, where they were at first unaware that they were heirs of the opposite clans, but the two had grown close and became great friends and rivals. Despite the fact that Madara would constantly yell at Hashirama for being an idiot sometimes, and Hashirama would feel depressed and fall into a state of depression, the two boys had shared a dream. A dream where everyone could live in peace, and for their brothers and for their families to be safe, a place where clans like the Uchihas and Senjus could live peacefully and not smite each other or end in an act of war. Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaf. That was their dream, their goal and their target, but it was wishful thinking, as both boys soon realized that they were on opposite sides and would have to face each other in battle, and face each other they did. Madara had spiky black hair with a hint of blue in it, and he had fair skin. With shoulder-length bangs framing the sides of his face and concealing the majority of his right eye, Madara allowed his hair to reach waist length. His thighs, shoulders, waist, and chest were all protected by the many metal plates that made up his crimson armor. However, he mostly wore the same basic Uchiha attire, which included a simple, light brown obi and a belt, as well as a blue, long-sleeved, high-collared mantle that split down the lower half. He frequently carried a brown leather sash to hold some of his other weapons, 2 belt sashes to hold 2 of his swords, and an orange-brown gunbai with a metal belt and a long black chain running up it during combat. Izuna was a fair-skinned man with blue-tinted, spiky black hair pulled back in a ponytail. He wore the traditional Uchiha attire, which included blue pants with bandages at the ends and a high-collared shirt with the Uchiha crest on the upper back. His bangs parted down the middle of his face to frame both sides of it. He had a bandage belt around his waist that contained a sack that probably contained ninja tools. Sakura pointed out to Sasuke, "Wow, Izuna looks just like you, Sasuke." Hashirama was a tall man with dark eyes and tanned skin. His face was framed by his waist-length black hair, which was usually worn in a center-parted fringe. He frequently wore the traditional shinobi outfit, which consists of a black suit with sandals and dark red armor. The Senju symbol was emblazoned on the collars of his shoulder guards, which were made from a variety of metal plates that formed multiple protective guards along his body. He wore a white cloth with his clan's symbol on his forehead before Konoha was formed. He later swapped it out for the village's forehead protector. Tobirama, his brother, was a fair-skinned man with dark eyes, represented as red in the anime, and white, shaggy hair. He had a red mark on his face, one on his chin and one beneath each eye. He wore a plain black suit over blue armor with a characteristic white fur collar. During battle, this armor was made of several metal plates that were arranged along his body to form several protective guards. He had 2 bands on each arm beneath his shoulder armor. Sandals and a hapuri, which replaced the more conventional forehead protector, were worn with this ensemble. The Senju's emblem was originally engraved on the hapuri, but Konoha's eventually took its place. Madara and Izuna unlocked the powers of the Mangekyo Sharingan, which can only be achieved by killing those you hold most dear or precious. The 2 brothers had unlocked 3 of the strongest attacks of the Mangekyo, which were Tsukuyomi, a powerful genjutsu, illusion that results in the victim suffering psychological trauma that incapacitates them for a considerable period of time, Amaterasu, the black flames that is said to be the fires from hell, and to burn as hot as the sun itself. Once created, it can continue burning for 7 days and 7 nights and cannot be extinguished with water or any other normal methods. Only the user who summoned it can put the flames out. And finally the Susanoo, a humanoid being made of the user's chakra that surrounds them and fights on their behalf. It is the strongest ability available to those who have the Mangekyo Sharingan, and in fact is the rarest to achieve, for the wielder must have awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan in both eyes. The power of the Mangekyo, however, comes at a terrible price. Overuse of the Mangekyo causes the person to lose their sight and render them blind. To prevent this, one of the users of the Mangekyo must give up their own eyes in order to prevent the other from going blind, thus awakening an even stronger version of the Mangekyo, the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Both the Mangekyo and Eternal Mangekyo are the only dojutsu that can subdue and control a tailed beast, while the Senju brothers have mastered their elemental prowess unlike any other. Hashirama had a mastery over water and earth, thus creating the wood style, a combination of water and earth, creating a sub-element and a new bloodline limit, or Kekkei Genkei. The wood style was one sub-element that could calm, suppress and control a tailed beast. Hashirama had also become a modern healer, where there wasn't an injury that he couldn't heal, and mastered the arts of the sage, where one becomes one with nature. In sage mode, Hashirama's power skyrockets, his ability and strength increases tenfold. Tobirama, on the hand, had surpassed his brother in the terms of water element. His prowess in the water elemental surpasses even the 3-tailed Jinchuriki. He is able to summon water particles from the air itself and could create an entire ocean of water appear in front of you, and like his older brother, Tobirama had also achieved sage mode. Tobirama was also a prodigy in making new jutsus that could help aid the new generation, such as the Shadow Clone Jutsu, the Thunder God Seal, and many more. He was a master of the swords, especially with Raijin no Ken, blade of the Thunder God. Hashirama still believed in his idealism of a peaceful world between Senju and Uchiha, as well as other clans and nations, despite that Madara had believed that there can never be peace between the 2 clans. During one of their battles with the Uchiha clan, Izuna was injured severely by Tobirama. Madara saw this and rushed to his brother's side. Hashirama saw an opportunity to help Izuna and put an end to this pointless feud between the 2 clans. Izuna refused to let Hashirama heal as to believe it was a sign of trickery to have them lower their guard down and kill them along with the rest of their clan. Between having Hashirama heal his brother and end this worthless feud or retreat back to save his brother, realizing that Izuna was dying, Madara respected his little brother's wishes, grabbed his brother and fled the battle along with the rest of the Uchihas. Izuna had died hours later, but not before handing over his eyes to Madara so that he doesn't go blind. With Izuna's passing and his new eternal Mangekyo thanks to his decreased brother's Mangekyo, Madara set forth to finally end his rivalry with Hashirama and the Senju clan. Madara summoned his complete body Susanoo while Hashirama wavered a few hand signs to conjure his wood-style, wood golem jutsu. The landscape soon changed as their battle was something unlike never before seen. The forest and hills were wiped out and a giant crater stood in its place. In the end, Madara had lost. Hashirama begged Madara that this rivalry needed to end and help bring peace to their clans. Madara accepted only if Hashirama killed, for Madara had already lost his brother Izuna and stated that would he kill Tobirama was his sake. Madara wanted peace so he could protect his brother, but now Izuna was gone and he wanted Hashirama to know the same pain by killing himself or ending Madara's life if there was to be peace between the two clans. Hashirama made his decision and decided to kill himself for the sake of peace. This surprised everyone, including Madara. Tobirama protested that there has to be another way, but Hashirama ignored his brother's protests as he strips off his armor. Hashirama stated that no one is to harm Madara or disobey him after his death. As he takes the dagger and prepares to impale himself, Hashirama felt someone grabbed his arm, and to his surprise it was Madara. Madara stops him as the dagger was merely inches away from his heart. Enough. Enough, Hashirama, you've shown me that if you're willing to sacrifice your life for your dream and peace, show how dedicated you are, old friend. I will sign the treaty, Madara stated. With that, the next day a meeting between the Senju and Uchiha clan commenced, as both clans have joined forces and have ended a long-time feud with each other. The peace that the two rivals had thought was becoming a reality as construction continued. More clans such as the Sarutobi, Shimura, Inuzuka, Aburame, Kurama, Hyuga, Akamichi, Yamanaka and Nara.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.